Hello, TCP viewers and listeners. Crouches, it's 2:47. It's another episode, another week. The show where we talk about the new Minions movie. The show where we review Morbius as well. Still haven't seen it.
Is that the new?
And
Is that today's title?
The show where we discuss the entire Guangzhou Charge for probably 2 hours.
Could
What do
be.
you guys reckon?
Don't know. Could be, folks. This may be a doozy. Better strap in.
The show where we talk about what new games Yiska is playing, which is just one new game.
Hey, I'm playing a new game.
Are you? What game?
I bought Wilder Myth. I don't know if anybody's heard about that. Wilder Myth. Quite good. Not. Pleasantly surprised. A little turn-based, story-rich kind of game. I emphasize story-rich. It's like procedurally generated as well, where like each like campaign is slightly different from the last, and yeah, it's cute. It's combat-wise, it's kind of boring.
Turn-based. When you say turn-based, I actually think Overwatch League for some teams is a turn-based game. If you think about it,
I would say that.
For example, last year it was Paris's turn to be like a good underdog team, and now it's London's turn. It's a turn-based game for those.
Yeah, everybody takes turns.
Oh, so Vancouver was out of moves and therefore couldn't make their turn onto the payload?
Yeah, we skipped them. You know how in Uno, like there's a skip card, we just kept skipping over them, and they just haven't been able to take a turn in a minute. So
damn.
It's like when you played Divinity Original Sin 2, or maybe even 1, I haven't played 1, and you get CC'd on you before your next turn, and then your turn just gets skipped, and you just get moved to the back of the queue again. That's the Vancouver Titans for 2 years in a row. They got stunned last year, and so they missed their turn. They didn't get to have a turn.
It feels like for Toronto, it feels like they just always do about 50% damage most of the time. Like they're just permanently weakened.
They skip their turn early. They play their turn, and they're like, now we're turning this to Hearthstone now. I've still got like 5 cards and like 3 mana left. I'm just gonna skip.
End turn, pass.
I feel like Toronto has skipped 5 seasons now.
They think they're playing Legends of Runeterra where you save mana and they don't realize they're actually playing up. You don't. So,
they're just leaving resources on the table. It feels like most of the time. There's no counterplay there. Can't counterplay stupidity.
Speaking of turns, but the turn of the ages here with BlizzCon returning in 2023. Yeah, which I'm quite excited about. I might finally get to go to a BlizzCon. How crazy is that?
Hopefully,
that'd be sick. Never been to one.
I thought it was over,
I'm determined to.
You thought it was over?
I thought that was a legitimate case where they might not want to bring it back.
Sure, I can see that.
But
just because of Microsoft Con. Welcome to Xbox Con.
I mean, it sort of like required you to be able to roll out novel information once a year.
Sure.
And that has been a little bit of an issue in terms of their development cycles recently. I feel like they had pretty dead spaces. Like the last 2 would have probably sucked.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know if like in-person events like that would be that appealing again, or if like virtual experiences or something like this would much rather be the case, and you just like come out with like there's no AppleCon, you know. Like you just announce whenever shit is ready, you know.
Don't they have like a keynote thing?
What would an Apple Con be? Everyone just brings their iPhone and they masturbate to it. What do they do? I don't know.
I think for
you just conduct a group circle jerk. Everyone circle jerks. I love iPhones. Oh, Max.
Everybody slides the lights up and down on their phones. You know, raises the volume on their Apple speakers.
But no, I don't think there's going to be an issue with content to reveal, because after in 2023, I think it's safe to assume BlizzCon 2023 November, they go back to the same scheduling, right? By November, Overwatch 2 is already out, plus the PvP is out, PvE is out. Diablo 4 is probably out. It would not be difficult to, because those are both live service games, announced to be live service games. It would not be difficult to, I don't know, at BlizzCon, just be like, here's what we're working on next for this thing. Just like how they announced a new WoW expansion, or like a new big boy WoW patch. Like, now you get to do this thing in World of Warcraft every BlizzCon. Like you can just do that. You know, I don't think it's a big issue.
Yeah, they've definitely got a slew of things. And next to that, like it opens up the possibility of you know, they've always had a stage and a, you know, a digital footprint to announce things. But I think we also have to look at, you know, Activision Blizzard and now, you know, under Microsoft's banner is, you know, producing other IPs and, you know, expanding some of these universes. Like, what else does Overwatch do? We've seen, I think it's, there's like a new like mobile Warcraft game that like came out to like a sputter of interest.
Wait, what?
Something, yeah. There, I don't know if it's released yet, but it's at least announced. I can tell you the name. Hold on one second.
Well, they acquired a whole new development studio, the Spell game.
The Spell, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
something.
and it was rumored that they acquired that entire studio with 100 employees, by the way.
Yeah.
To develop some sort of console or potential for WoW, either for console or like for maybe phones or some sort of like control scheme, because they did a really good controls. Their project for the I cannot remember the name.
Spellbreak?
Spellbreak, there you go. The concept of Spellbreak was like, you know, like a real-time action spell slinging kind of game. It's pretty good. It never took off. I think their marketing probably wasn't good enough, and maybe it just isn't the type of game that Zoom is like. But conceptually, it's great. So I think that's a great acquisition from a studio perspective. Okay, but things actually did happen this week.
Yes.
We had the whole BlizzCon thing written down. I don't think there's too much to say about it, which is why we might as well just like banter about it during the intro. There's not a lot to really dive
ideally
into
I think this is what the people want to know. Ideally we can pay for a ticket for this German curmudgeon to get out here, and maybe we do some live shit, you know. Maybe we get like a live recording.
How cute of you guys to expect me to be let inside.
You don't need to be let inside to be in a hotel room with a camera, bud.
Yeah, I guess. We can do some.
What are you fucking Richard Lewis? Are you banned?
Yeah, he's shadow banned from all Activision Blizzard events. You know, they have him on a short list. They're like, no, this Sasha guy, yeah, can't come in. Sorry.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. But like, if you want to do some jackass stuff, like, I guess we can.
You can do whatever you want to do, bud.
And a new patch to drop. Contenders started again. I actually did my first Contenders cast of the year today. On the live beta patch, which includes Junker Queen and all the Moira stuff. So that's a conversation and some interesting stuff. And then obviously there's the big conversation around all the Hawai'i logistics that has been up on people's minds lately. So plenty to talk about, I think. So shall we get into it? 247, brought to you by AVRL Vista Bebe, Battle Crab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buha, Charing. Philadelphia's more of a stage 3 team anyway. Chris R34444. By the way, that means that they don't think Philadelphia is going to do anything in the mid-season tournament, because we're already talking about stage 3.
So now it happens.
Cash 67, Lulshin, Porkchop, Sammy, Rex, Volamel, Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery, with YouTube members Isam Jello, William Jesse, Vishmam, Free Element 6, AK, and Chris R. Okay, first thing to talk about is, might as well get this one out of the way. I guess we'll do the patch first.
Sure.
It's like the most recent thing. There's been a lot of pushback, a lot of takes on the internet. Some that I think are good takes, a lot that I think are just trash takes. A lot of crying and whinging on the internet. I think that's really what most people
whinging
do on the internet. Imagine this. God, I'm not religious, by the way, but God gave us thumbs. And with those thumbs, we created the internet so that people can go on Battle.net and cry. That's what we did with thumbs. How sad. Could be on Mars right now. We could have colonized the solar system, but no. Instead, we're on Battle.net crying is what we're doing. That's what humanity does today.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a lot of takes. There's been a lot of reactions in opposite direction. This is unfortunately the plight of Blizzard Entertainment, where you don't know what the hell you can do about this situation, because you look at you work at a kindergarten. You walk in, you're a preschool teacher because you have to deal with children, and you look around you and there's like two separate groups of children, and they're all fucking whining and crying, and they don't have their pacifiers on, and all of that kind of going on. On a one hand, you have all the pleb players who they're not very good. They have no idea what the hell they're doing, but they're very entitled and they have a very loud voice because they think they do know what they're talking about. On the other hand, you have the good players who mostly they probably have slightly better takes, but they're like entitled in the other direction and they have the opposite takes to the plebs. And they just basically you have two sides which are completely in opposition and both think they're extremely correct. I still think the good players are slightly more correct for the most part, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that they're always correct. There's definitely stuff that they've complained about that is like, oh, it's not a big deal, guys. You guys are being a little bitchy about this.
Yeah.
So imagine being a Blizzard dev and you look at this and you just have like multiple groups of people who are all crying as hard as possible and they all think they're absolutely correct. What the hell do you do? That's like an impossible task to manage, almost, right?
You have an intern attempt to sift through it all to find some thread of commonality, right?
If you're a reasonable person, you probably read everyone a bedtime story, and oh, it's okay, little Timmy, But thankfully it's not me, because if it was me, I'm going full Anakin Skywalker. I ain't holding back, I'm fucking ripping that lightsaber out. They're done. They're all done.
Kill the Padawans.
Relevant because I just finished Kenobi, and yeah, that show did suck. So,
shout out to the real ones who saw Kenobi and thought it sucked.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about some. I'm kidding. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thinking.
Yes, happy birthday to friend of the show and
yes,
I just
didn't realize. Happy birthday. All right, guys. What do do we just read the patch notes out? Do we start reacting to it straight away? Why don't we just like go over the important stuff? Let's forget about the non-important stuff. Let's just go over only the important stuff, which is the Moira rework. There's some Mercy stuff in there, but I don't. Who cares? Here's one. I'll tell you what. Here's one good thing that came out of the recent patch notes. It made the Mercy players cry even harder, and that pleases me. And we had comments like, I'm not going to play Mercy anymore. I'm like, good, thank God. Hey, please fuck with Mercy more. The more you fuck with Mercy and the more people start playing her, the more it pleases me. So, in my opinion, great job. Amazing. Keep it going. Keep it going, guys. You're doing the good thing here.
To echo the positivity on the Mercy front, if I'm understanding this correctly, I think this is, if anything, like helpful. So it's not just strictly vertical. Like you can change the directional input of how your GA goes.
Players
I don't know. They just don't understand
What's
it.
Their fucking
I'm guessing
problem?
they do not understand what this is, how they're supposed to use it.
Are they being elitist now? Which is the biggest irony in the world. Like, Mercy players being elitist is like I wish I had a witty comparison. I wish I had a witty analogy right now, but I don't. So somebody else step in. Like what? You know what I mean? Like, imagine an elitist Moira. We'll talk about Moira. An elitist Mercy player. That's like, I don't know. What is it like? God damn.
It's like being sweaty over cup stacking.
Like,
I don't know.
It's like you work at a fast food restaurant as like a burger flipper. You walk into a Michelin star restaurant and you tell the chefs how to cook or some shit like that. You're being like elitist about your cooking. But you're a fucking burger flipper at a Michelin star restaurant. Shut the fuck up. That's what that is. But no, I don't know what their issue is. I don't know. Like what they made Mercy more they made her more accessible, and that's a problem. I don't understand. I don't play Mercy. Who does? Well, apparently a lot of people, but hopefully less now. Hopefully less of them now. I'm in a mood today. I'm pissed off. I'm in a,
hey,
that's my default.
Fire away.
Almost didn't notice
today. I'm angry at the world. I'm angry that God gave us thumbs and we decided to do this. That's what I'm angry about.
Yeah.
I'm still not religious, but
Sure.
Like,
metaphorically so.
I think there's always going to be like a certain subset of people that hate change. And I think that's mostly it's a calcification of. It does suck if a particular mechanic that you didn't like. I honestly like. I kind of like super jumps, Like, from an elitist point of view, I'm almost like, oh, why did we have to make it easy? You know, why did we need to modularize everything?
Because Blizzard see it as a bug, and I think, to their credit, they would rather they want to fix the bug and try and make it a real feature rather than just leave it as a bug. I don't. Again, I'm not going to pretend I know from the engineering side what it all means on the back end, but there's a chance as well that because it is a bug and not a feature, that if you mess with some stuff, the bug will actually be broken, which is funny because a bug is broken, but it'd be more broken to the point where the bug doesn't do what the bug is supposed to do. And so if you treat a bug like a feature, then you really should just make it a feature, right?
Yeah.
Is my line of thinking. And I don't know if I assume that maybe is along the lines of what the devs are trying to do as well.
Makes sense, yeah.
So that's what this is all about.
The thing is, like, if you go down Blizzard history, you will find that some of the best mechanics just semantically changed from bug to feature. You know? Like, almost everything that makes StarCraft 1 interesting was not intended to be in the game. Right. So, I remember I had, like, in 2015, I had, like, a thing what like Overwatch needs in order to succeed, and one of the points was don't touch things that accidentally are excellent and fix them. And I was hella pissed that we got rid of Genji ledge dashing.
Sure.
Yeah. Being a little
is that triple jumping? Is that the triple jump?
No, it's the
Genji
ledge dash was like when you Genji can walk up walls, and then as you go past the surface, you can dash,
walk up walls,
and
sorry, continue.
And like as you go past the ledge and dash, it had ridiculous velocity behind it. Like you could basically get into streets from spawn. As Genji.
That sounds kind of shitty. The problem with that is now we're talking about abusing bugs to do unintended things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. That gets into a really.
If the unintended thing is enriching gameplay, then I don't have an issue.
Sometimes
was a little
much.
Mega dash just sends you across the map. Is that really enriching gameplay? That doesn't. Sound
it was a little heavy, but it increased the points of attack for Genji in particular a lot. It caused some issues, but like it's probably also a bad example. But definitely, like there are situations where like you accidentally find something that improves, like that wasn't intended by the developer, but that improves the experience overall, right?
Could we say maybe like the Winston stall spots from yesteryear maybe is a good example?
I mean, even though you could argue that
because those aren't healthy for the game either. Like stalling on the roof is definitely unintended. It's not good for the game, in my opinion.
I feel like legitimately, super jumping for Mercy was one of the best ones because it actually added a lot of skill expression to a otherwise pretty simple character. And to like that differentiated great mercies from bad ones, right? Like that was something that we talked about in season 1. Like it was just a good thing that was never intended, but also like really added to the survivability. And you could tell like who mastered that shit and who didn't. And those like seem like the best ways. Where now like just having that to be too reliable, too obvious. I don't know. Like I understand that this is exactly what Blizzard does with everything. Where like you get rid of CSing in HOTS, right? No, like we like CSing, like you know. So
can I just say again, the community reaction is just so weird because I feel like the same people that complain about them making Mercy more accessible by making this shit easy are the same people that are like, well, you know, Overwatch is meant to be an accessible game. That's why I play Mercy. Like so, and now you're being elitist about it. It's like, holy shit. Stop! You're like a pot calling the kettle black over here. Holy shit! Like, just pipe the fuck down. What hero do you think you're playing here? Like, are you joking? I think Super Jump was a to the credit of Mercy, like a great skill expression ability as well. But I also fully understand. I think I fully understand why they are doing this. Why they are changing it up. I don't know if there's a better way to do this where they get to keep some of the difficulty in it while making it more consistent, or at least making it a feature, not a bug. I don't know. I don't know enough about engineering or how the development process of that works, so I'm not going to pretend to. Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, again, these changes that they've listed about having GA, once you cancel it, you can change direction, so it's not just completely vertical now. Like it seems like a buff. It seems like it's accessible in a sense that it's not as jerky or abusable as it was. I think last patch you had people literally bouncing around, and that's obviously not intended.
Oh, that's broken. Yeah, that's a bug for sure.
That's a bro. Yeah, of course, but
that the dolphin diving shit from the no. What the hell was that?
That's not intended at all. But even then, like having people being kind of confused as to why they're just kind of bouncing up once they reach the end of GA also felt kind of clunky, and it's something that I think we talked about as well. Some way to implement it in a way that felt a little bit more fluid, felt a little bit more streamlined, and this not only kind of meets that goal at least, and on paper it seems like it's meeting that goal, but it also adds a little bit more skill expression as well. So where you're not just going in a set direction, but maybe you can like spin around a corner. I don't know exactly how it plays, but it seems like it adds a little bit more utility to it as well. So on paper, it seems like it's actually a minor buff to her mobility of the super jump, rather than like removing any kind of utility or making this harder to understand. I don't understand why there are people complaining about this. This seems like a net good thing. I don't know. It seems weird.
It's like Yiska said, right? Like people just want to complain or something.
They want to complain, and I think there's also some gatekeeping going on. So
again, the concept of Mercy players being gatekeepers is just so funny to me. That is so funny to me. It's just like it's like the 13-year-old kid in school that gets bullied by the 14-year-old kid, and now the 13-year-old kid decides to bully the 12-year-old kid. That's what this is.
Yeah. Hurt people, AVRL.
I don't know. Which is why I hurt people, because I'm fucking hurt. I'm eternally pissed and angry because I've been repeatedly hurt. Let's talk about the actual thing now. I can't believe you guys baited me into talking about Mercy for fucking God knows how long. As if I couldn't hate myself anymore. I'm already severely depressed now. And now I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to lie awake and just
thinking about Mercy.
Open. Thinking about Mercy and, loving the hero, hating the player base. Let's talk about Moira, where, fun fact, I only have 2 golden guns. One of them is on Mercy. Moira. That's a true story, by the way. Enfeebling
is it really?
Is it was a phase. It was a phase, guys. Look, which Mercy? Okay. It's too good. Yeah. So we have a new ability on Moira. So the entire let's just make it. If you want to read the patch notes, Google it. You'll find it. We're just going to expedite this conversation a little bit. The damage orb has been replaced by a new ability called Necrotic Orb, which you basically fire this orb in a straight ass line, and it travels fairly quickly. I don't know what the exact speed is, and I don't know how to measure it, but it's a pretty fast projectile. And when it hits any surface or a player, it explodes for a 3-meter radius impact, and every enemy caught in that 3-meter radius impact has the weakened status effect, the debuff, which reduces all damage they deal by 75%, including ultimates, like anything.
Yeah.
Flats had the tweet, which I quote tweeted, where basically he's just sitting there surviving against a Diva bomb.
Yeah.
Because you have a Diva launch her self-destruct, you Necrotic orb the baby Diva, you put her under weakening, and her self-destruct just deals 75% less damage. Straight up. The actual damage output of this orb is admittedly it's admittedly like very light. It's 40 impact and 10 explosions, so you have to hit somebody directly with this to actually do damage. It only does 50 damage. And yeah, and I'm okay with that, because I think I've always had a problem with DPS Moira, where the old damage orb, you just kind of like fire and forget. It was the most boring, poorly designed thing ever. You just fire it into a stack of players and just watch your ultimate bar go up. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So thankfully they removed that. But let's discuss whether we like this new weakening effect, this new necrotic orb.
Okay, question. Is it enfeebling orb or necrotic orb?
Necrotic orb. They used to call it enfeebling orb. I actually think they should have kept it as enfeebling orb. I feel like that tells you more about what it does than necrotic orb, right?
Yeah.
That's just what I think. But
agreed. I think enfeebling is a better name, but regardless. Concept-wise, and we kind of talked about this pre-show a little bit, but to kind of rehash the points, concept-wise, it seems like actually a pretty fun ability. It adds some skill expression to Moira. Outside of that, like AVRL had mentioned, Damage Orb was a fire and forget ability. You just kind of sent it down a hallway, and sometimes it got you random kills, and the other team would, say some not nice words to you about that. It seemed very boring. It was the obvious foil to the healing orb. I get that, but in terms of just like utility and what I deem as an interesting concept to the game, I thought it was actually pretty fucking flat. It was pretty boring. This, however, conceptually seems pretty cool. Numbers wise, seems a little overtuned. I'd like to maybe see the radius tightened, maybe the 75% tightened in a little, reeled in a little bit, maybe not as long as a debuff. But the idea, I think, adds some counterplay to an otherwise pretty boring hero. That's my take. On to somebody else.
Yiska, you've had a lot of time experimenting with this.
No, I haven't played with it either. Okay, can I frame this in the sense that I absolutely believe that this character needs changes, and like whatever toying around is in there. Like
I think you need to be honest with the audience and admit that you only play the German characters and the Swiss characters you don't like. Where's Moira from? No, she's Irish. The Irish characters you don't like.
Mercy is legitimately more fun than Moira.
Yeah. Oh, Mercy Swiss? All right, well,
yeah.
I respect this. I respect the Swiss a lot less now.
Yes. But Mercy is still more fun than Moira. I just hate Moira, man. Like, at least in like.
But is she?
There's zero good Moira metas. It all sucks.
Yes, but it's all boring.
But what about now? But what about now with this? Is this better for the game? That we can talk about the raw numbers about whether that's good or bad, but in theory, is this a positive change for Moira, given that she now is less about like, I'm gonna run into your backline with an orb and just right click some dude down? I don't know, she now has a debuff instead of just being a straight damage orb, which I never felt right to me.
Ditto.
That makes sense.
Like, it makes sense.
Conceptually, is this taking Moira in the right direction? Again, without considering the actual numbers, because those can still be tuned. Is this the right direction for Zero?
I would say so, personally. Yiska.
I'm not sure. Like, I feel like it's like it's not the wrong direction. Okay, how do I explain this? We were definitely in the wrong direction with the massive damage. Like, just the numbers she put out across the board were just dummy things.
Yeah.
Right? And it has especially been an issue at lower levels of play, where she's clearly out. Like, playing Moira in ranked is like, for the vast majority of players, is like, I could increase my chance to win this game by a significant amount, but I could also but at the sacrifice of having any fun whatsoever, right? And whatever in that regard, in that dimension, I feel like now she's maybe more fun, but I'm not sure how much. Yeah, it's really hard.
About 20% more fun. 20% more fun.
Yeah,
no,
I'm not mad at that napkin.
I feel like that entire kit is built on quicksand, and like that's not going to change it. And we probably need a like. Yeah. She's at minimum as flawed as Orisa was. Like, I think
what if they gave
vulnerability
what if they gave Moira resurrection?
Okay, well now we've got problems. Now we have issues.
So we all agree that Rez shouldn't belong in the game. Then
I'd much prefer a different ability for Mercy, if I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think it's good. Okay. Give her like a skill shot heal, like a burst heal or something. I don't know.
I think you should have to pull out a DDR pad, and complete like a 5-second DDR input to successfully raise someone, just to raise the skill ceiling of the game a little bit,
I'm okay
or even floor. I don't know, floor and ceiling really. And if you do it on expert difficulty, whatever that looks like in actual DDR games, you get to mass res. How about that? I wouldn't even be mad. I'd be like, well, this person earned it. You know, that was hard to do. that was skilled. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. No, I actually think for Moira, like this is the direction is good. I want all supports to be more playmaking type of supports rather than, and here's I have a criticism against Zenyatta for this. I don't call controversial take. Zenyatta is ultimately a pretty good hero. But in the lens of like things like Mercy and Moira existing, probably the bar is set a little low, guys. Not gonna lie to you. But Zenyatta is also, I think, conceptually a pretty, in some ways, a kind of boring hero because he is like a DPS that heals in some ways, way more so than even a BAP. Even though with BAP has got that ultimate, which really is a damage ultimate at the end of the day. I'm also really disliking of damage boosting in this game outside of ultimate. So if it's nano boost or amplification matrix, okay, what's an ultimate? I get it. But Discord or Blue Beam, nah, man, I don't like those. So really, there's nothing redeemable about Mercy at all. She has damage boost, yikes. A resurrection, yikes.
Mega yikes.
And the people that play her are not good human beings. So there you go. That's triple yikes for me. So, you know, if you're a respectable human being, you simply don't play heroes like Mercy. Like it's reserved for people who are not respectable human beings, I think. So, I'll die on this hill. Anyway,
you know, like my problem with Moira also always has been like if someone tells me like Fielder is so good on Moira, man, like he.
Yeah, what does that mean? What is it? Like, explain that.
That's like saying to me that we generally watch like tennis. And then you tell me like someone is very good at badminton. I don't give a fuck. There's 5 people in the world who give a fuck about that. Like,
I mean, okay, that's fair.
I thought you were going to take in a direction like, bro, this guy's really good at breathing. The way he opens his mouth and inhales air and then exhales it, bro. This guy's really. Hey, dude, that's crazy. This guy's. Bro, have you seen this guy sleep? He closes his eyes and his consciousness leaves. Holy fuck.
Do you guys know what T-ball is? Does the term T-ball make sense to you?
Yes, it's when it's softball, but the ball is on a tee.
Is on like a it's on like a little stand that you just hit. Yeah, when somebody comes up to me like Yiska's saying and it's like, yeah, bro, like have you seen like Gundam Jin's fucking Moira, bro? It's like, yeah, he's great at T-ball. Congratulations, you hit a ball that is placed in front of you.
T-ball is important in the world because it's a pathway for children to eventually get into stuff like softball, baseball. So
100%.
I think it has a worthwhile thing in the game. My problem is,
are you telling Fielder to grow up?
My problem is the adult T-ball play. The analogy, the adult T-ball players of the world who are stuck on T-ball haven't progressed to baseball. They look at baseball, they're upset about baseball, and they want to tear down baseball. So everyone's playing T-ball and no one's playing baseball, even though the reality is they should stop fucking playing T-ball in place of baseball. But they don't do that. They would like to tear down baseball instead. That's my problem with half this fucking player base.
Yeah.
Probably not half this player base. Let's be honest, Battle.net probably only accounts for like 5% of the player population. No, less than that. Like I'm being generous. Less than 1% really. But they act like they're about 90% of the player base.
They are quite loud.
I'm on a tirade against them. I fucking despise them. I fucking despise them. They're all a bunch of whiny, bitchy T-ball players who want to bring baseball down. That's what that is. This is a baseball podcast now. Let's go fucking Yankees. I don't know anything about baseball. I watched that movie Moneyball. That's the extent of my knowledge of baseball.
I love hot dogs.
So, by the way, I just spent a bit of time testing the Mercy jump in the training room. To me, actually, because I'm stupid, it took me a while to figure out like how the hell do I even do this? I'm like, why am I just gliding forwards? You have to actually look in the direction you want to jump, which is cool. Like I never bothered learning Mercy's super jump because why would I lock in that hero?
Yeah.
Anyway, every now and then I have to look at the golden gun that I bought with my fake credits. And, you know, I paid for this, you know, well, not with real money, just paid for it with my credit. Anyway,
Time.
yeah. So yeah, like it's fine. I don't know what the complaint is. Like it's fine. It is just fine. The only people that have problems with it are people that are being extremely elitist about it. People that are being really gatekeepy about it.
They keep the T-ball guys. Don't worry.
I don't know. It's you know. Guys, I finally have the analogy. It's like
got it.
These elitist Mercy players are like T-ball players who are trying to gatekeep children from playing T-ball or something like that. Does that work? That's closer than what I had before. It's a work in progress, guys.
No, it makes sense. Like I think you in particular, and I think we all pretty much agree, have been pretty consistent that it's okay to have noob trap heroes where like you have a character like Mercy or a character like Moira that's like fairly accessible to start the game with, and then you advance up as the hero, tapers off in terms of like usability or efficacy.
I'm a big fan of games that have I wouldn't even call it noob trap. I would just call it like entry level.
Sure.
Stuff that gets you in. Like the marijuana you hit before you get the heroin.
Exactly. Gateway drugs. Love that.
I don't do drugs, but this is just what I've been told.
Sure.
And no, really, but
Can we all make a pledge that we're going to improve our metaphor game from this point on?
I don't know. I don't.
Hey,
care
I thought T-ball was good. Thank you.
I'm on a certain wavelength today, and I just like, don't give me the nuclear codes because I'm ready to launch. Yeah.
He's talking about dust. He's talking about spice. It's in a video game. Okay, guys, listen.
Right.
In a video game.
In June.
Yeah. So, yeah. You know, Dune Spice Wars. So, my point is like, yeah, I think. We've gone way past the patch notes here, guys. I will turn us back around. But just like Murder on the Orient Express, I might kill somebody on the way back.
You might have to cut a bitch.
So yeah, like I think entry level heroes are fine. Like games, I don't mind games having training wheels. I think that's great. Games having training wheels is perfectly fine. My issues is when you're someone that rides a little tricycle and you're on the little fucking training wheels because you don't know how to ride a bike, and then you demand that the people on the Tour de Force also have to be on little tricycles with training wheels. Fuck you. That's my problem.
Yeah.
It's like if you're on training wheels and once you get better, you should get off the fucking training wheels and start playing the real game.
Lance Armstrong should have training wheels, and every professional bowler should have bumpers.
But what these people have done is they've decided to enter the Tour de Force with a training wheels tricycle, and they're not upset that they suck and that they are not on the bike. They're upset that everyone else is on a bike, even though they've earned that, and they're upset that they think that all the people that are on bikes should be on tricycles instead. That's what they think. That's my biggest problem with these people.
The problem is that they feel that everyone else is on steroids, but they aren't, and they want to maintain the sanctity of the game.
Too. Yes.
No, they don't want to be forced, but of course, like their worldview of whatever the sport is warped.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes.
So like that's the problem. Like some people try to improve changing the rules of the game, and some just play by the rules and try to.
Are we slowly becoming Is Mercy an honest character podcast?
No. We're discussing the patch notes here and how ironically stupid it is that the Mercy players are getting elitist about Super Jump. Like, it's like this is. I'm gonna keep going. This is the tricycle person being elitist about the baby that's crawling. It's like, oh, you little fucking baby, you're crawling. Fuck you. That's Mercy players. That's how elitist they're being. They're being elitist at babies who are crawling, even though they are on fucking tricycle wheels. Jeez, it's like they have no self-awareness. It's hilarious.
One thing I will say about Moira for a second. I think people are rightfully pointing out some like absurd moments where she can be like very, very good. Like how Flat showed that like you can survive a Diva Bomb. Yeah, that's like really impactful and really strong. Get that. Like that's crazy. But the vast majority of time, that's probably not happening 99% of the time. So like view that within the proper lens. It's not just, oh my God, you can survive Diva Bomb, busted. It's if you properly time this, you can actually add a lot of survivability to your team and actually shut down some
4 seconds.
Yeah. It is a long time. I would agree. It is long.
We can talk about the numbers now. We've agreed that this is a good direction now. We can talk about the numbers.
Correct.
Bro, am I the only one that thinks the numbers are overtuned?
I 100% agree. They're way too overtuned. The length, the damage reduction is a little much. I think just like if we agree that like silence based abilities like hack are not necessarily super fun to play into. If I load in damage and I get fucking 75%ed for 4 seconds and I do nothing, like you said, yeah, that's not particularly fun for like that window of time.
Unless you're like I think the only heroes that's like the only role it doesn't really apply to is like support. So if you get weakened as a support, you're like, well, I guess I could just heal.
Yeah.
But the equivalent for for DPS and tanks is like, imagine the Necrotic Orb reduce your healing output by 75%. That would be the support equivalent,
Insane.
right? Which once you translate it into those numbers, you're like, no, hold the fucking phone.
Yeah.
You've got a bit too far. Even though, funny enough, anti-heal is in the game. That's
is effectively
100%. That's 100% reduced healing. But it's like, but the reason why it's different is it's 100% reduced healing on the target that receives it. But you as a healer, your healing has not been reduced. So it's the same difference as, think about Fortify in Nano Boost. When you're fortified in Nano Boost, you take 50% less damage. So damage reduction actually already exists in the game. But the reason why that doesn't feel bad is because that's a buff to the person using it and not a debuff to the other person trying to kill you.
Right.
So it feels bad when you are debuffed and you can't do anything. But if you go up against a player that self-buffs themselves, I don't know if it's just a psychological thing, because you think the exchange is equivalent. Like, for example, hypothetically speaking, if Fortify was a 75% damage reduction for 4 seconds, and which is the exact same as Necrotic Orb now, in a vacuum, in a pure 1v1, are they not exactly the same thing? Right? They are in a vacuum, they're the same thing, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
But it feels worse.
Correct.
But Necrotic Orb in that same example feels worse than the person with Fortify. Like, I'm saying it's either or, right? It's not like both at the same time. That'd be crazy. But like, if you are either a person that does not have your damage reduced, but you go up against a Fortify 75% reduction for 4 seconds, or you are someone that's now weakened, 75% reduction for 4 seconds. Weakened feels worse than the other way around, where like you play against a Fortify, correct?
Yeah. Yes. I think it is just completely psychological, where like you feel like you have lost control at somebody's whim, which is, again, like you're saying, kind of the same thing with Fortify, but it feels better if it's applied as a buff, like somebody's choosing to say, yeah, I take less damage now, and it's like, oh shucks, like I'll just go shoot somebody else now instead of being debuffed.
They haven't removed agency from you in a way. And I guess in a vacuum they did.
In a way they kind of did, but
But when you take it out of the vacuum and you apply it to the general landscape of what Overwatch is as a 5v5 multiplayer game, if someone, let's bring the Fortify example back, and let's imagine it's the mega buffed up 75% 4 second Fortify.
Sure.
If that gets popped, you just ignore the Orisa.
Yeah.
Because you can kill the other 4 people, correct? So your game still functions. Okay, sure, 20% of the heroes on the other team you don't bother with. Because it's 80% left, you don't feel that bad about it.
Yeah, no.
When you get Necrotic Orb and you're weakened, 100% of targets.
Yes.
Functionally speaking, the entire enemy team now has 75% Fortify.
70, yes.
Yeah.
Functionally speaking.
Yeah.
I think that's the major difference here.
Correct.
I think the thing is, like, once we start with these debuffs, like MMO-esque debuffs, where we are halfway there, I feel like. It's definitely already true with healing debuffs and whatnot. Then we gotta extend cleanse abilities. And to my knowledge, I think there's only Zarya that currently fulfills that role, right?
That's a slippery slope. While I agree, I would rather we just don't even go down that road. I was going to say not even open that can of worms, but I feel like that's a little late. I feel like Pandora's box has already just started leaking out, and I don't think it's too late to shut the lid, but I do feel like we're on our way to opening Pandora's box here. The problem with introducing more cleanse effects is now the entire metagame, whether you like it or not, ends up being this like status effect versus cleanse kind of situation. Now it's like, oh, we have to have some cleanse because they got all these status effects, and now you get this like arms race. So like, well, now we got to put more cleanses to counter the status effects. Well, now the cleanses too. Now we're going to add more status effects, and they're fucking arm racing each other. Now the whole game is just status effects versus cleanses, right? We don't want that.
The thing is, like,
there's a balance. We need to find that.
I think we'd still need to find relatively easy to deploy areas of introducing novelty as we introduce new characters. Like, the more you limit yourself on well-tested ideas, and I agree we shouldn't MMOify that, and
yeah,
I think like as soon as it becomes this mechanical and your idea of like building a team comp is, do I have X, Y, and Z status effects or status effects cleanses or whatever,
right?
Then it gets a little bit wowie, where you're like, okay, for this
we don't have a cleanse, or we need an anti here.
Yeah.
You know, we need weaken.
Even though, like, in terms of team building, that's almost like a guiding thing that can work. But, like, still, we need some systems in order to create novelty that is relatively easy to find. Because, like, eventually we're going to run out of ideas what kind of weapons there will be, right? Eventually we run out of ideas like what CC looks like. And then if we don't find novel dimensions to innovate in, we'll necessarily introduce power creep.
You're saying eventually Blizzard are probably going to have to forget about making every single hero unbelievably unique because design space is limited for an FPS game, and we're eventually going to have to start looking at a bit of overlap.
Yeah. I mean...
So that being the case, my opinion is pull the fucking Band-Aid off now. Yeah. Pull that shit off. We're going down that road anyway. We all know it. Like, here's the truth. Either design space is limited because you're trying to keep this as an FPS game, or you've given up on keeping this as an FPS game, and now anything goes.
Yeah.
And now we could be playing fucking Donkey Kong now. Like, this might as well just be fucking Super Mario Brothers. Like, anything goes. Like, so you're either keeping to what the game's DNA is, in which case design space is limited, or it's not. And if it is, then we need to accept that there's going to be overlap eventually. And I think, to be fair to Riot League of Legends, they should have very limited design space, but I feel like, okay, they do have a lot of overlap. They have a shitload of overlap.
Oh, yeah.
But they still managed to come up with some interesting new ideas for most of the new champions, which I respect. So
they do 100%. They come up with novel ideas, but it's the way that they package them is always either slightly different, or they do have like some themes, right? Like the 3-hit passive meme from years ago that like it felt like every other hero. You know, it's still, there are some like very comfortable concepts that they deploy in interesting ways. I think they also
made that an item. They're like, that, you know, the 3-hit thing. Let's just make an item. I found that.
I mean. Really, it is funny, but like even for a moment, like I think they do interesting things with Valorant, and I know completely different game, but like the way that they have these comfortable concepts, like what is the flash? How do we change the flashbang grenade, right? Like what does it arc off of? Can it bounce? Can it go through walls, right? They change something about a familiar concept that makes it a completely new, you know, and novel ability, you know, and now you have Sky throwing a bird around a corner that can flash, but it can also be shot. So there's like an interesting dynamic there. I think if we agree that design space is limited, like you guys are saying, then we can take these concepts like Weekend, like you know,
you can have different flashes. Like, is this one Barry Allen or is this one Wally West? Like, which version of the flash do we have?
Exactly.
Okay, so have we reached an hour on this topic yet? Because I think that's the minimum before we're allowed to move on.
Hell no.
I had no idea. Cool. So
I think we're
Moira, or are we? What seems acceptable to you then? 3 sec. I put out this idea. 3-second duration, 50% reduction. Thoughts?
Without playing it, I think that's definitely a better change than where it is now. I don't know how oppressive 3 meters as a radius distance is in terms of the splash for the debuff. I can't say. I haven't played with it yet.
6 meter diameter.
Oh, you want it to go up?
No. It's a 3 meter radius, is 6 meter diameter. So
correct.
people obsess on the 3 when the real number you should think about is 6. Right, because that's the actual distance of that's the actual size of the splash is 6 meters. Some people forgetting the difference between diameter and radius, and they think like 3 meters, that's pretty small. It's like, yo, that's the radius, not the diameter. That's the radius. It's half of the fucking splash, not the full thing. So I don't hate the splash. I just think the numbers are crazy.
Okay.
I think the last thing to talk about here, because we probably have been here too long. Like 80% of this was me ranting, so I apologize for that. I don't apologize for what I said, but I apologize for how long it took. Yeah. So like, people have compared Byronade and Anti-Nade to this, right? And that's 100%. That's 100. To be fair, I think 100% for anti-heal is too much as well. I would like to see that getting taken down to more like a 75 or even a 50. We talked about this, I think, off camera, but it's like more like a Grievous Wounds from League of Legends rather than like you can't heal now, because we would all. I think the only reason why it's been acceptable so far is like it's exactly what I said. The difference between it lands on particular targets that you can no longer heal versus I put it on you and now all of you are healing. You just can't play the fucking game for X amount of seconds. That's a big difference, right? That's the only reason Byronade has been acceptable. But I think, especially in Overwatch 2, when there's very little that counters Ana or that stops Ana from doing her thing, because in Overwatch 1, you had way more shields. You had D.Va that just blocked all these. D.Va was a big counter to Ana because you just ate everything up.
Yeah.
Whereas D.Va is now a solo hero and she barely gets played. Even then, I don't know if she would do a great job of it. You used to have a lot. There was a lot more ways for you to stop Ana from doing her shit. Whereas now, every fight I can just throw a Byronade onto someone. 100% accuracy.
Yep.
Slick darts still challenging to land if your aim isn't great, but at least there's nothing blocking it. At least it's all on you. Now it's just your skill holding you back. It's not like, oh no, there's too many shields and I can't weave a sleep dart in. It's all you currently. So,
okay.
Yeah, but
to be fair, Ana is admittedly very strong, and I'd like to see her looked at. I think she's still a well-designed hero, but I'd like to see her looked at. What I'm saying.
That's the weird thing. Like, this necrotic orb feels like too strong, and then I'm looking at what Ana abilities achieve, and they're just like categorically better, right? Like, not only is the healing nade 100% and therefore shuts down all healing, therefore like emitting a certain emotion there, but like if someone starts ulting, it's way worse to be hit by a sleep dart than be hit by weakened. With the exception being that, like, I can just keep pounding the target that's being weakened. I cannot necessarily do that in all instances when someone is slept, right? And Genji blading or whatever, right?
But I would argue that it's worse because instead of, I can't pound this person being slept, it is, especially at a high level, all but a guaranteed kill. So all it really is a staggered death. A sleep dart being hit at a high level equates to, I am dead now, but my death timer is 10 seconds plus whatever duration I'm slept for. This is the equivalent of what sleep is. So technically, it's worse than being wailed on and just pounded while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
You get polymorphed into death.
Yo, that's also coming, right? Like some polymorph ability.
It already is.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I've argued that being weakened is almost being equivalent to just being polymorphed.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, but I hear what you're saying. I don't know if you finished it, Yiska. We just kind of cut in, but
no, like I think generally speaking, like I'm not sure if that's the solution. I think you probably even need one more ability in order to make Moira fun, if that is your direction. But the thing is, like, you already have so many buttons already used, so yeah, I don't know.
I don't mind her being the buttons character though. Is that like a bad thing to be the buttons character? Like,
no.
Wouldn't it be more fun to have more options?
Yeah,
I understand that's probably not great for new players because it's quite overwhelming, but that's what having a skill learning curve is. You just learn over time. But how about this? Here's my counter argument for Sleep Dart. It is significantly more challenging to land than the necrotic orb. And if you haven't played Moira, then you'll just have to take my word for it.
Sure.
But I can explain it. I mean, it's a necrotic orb is a reasonably fast traveling projectile. It also has a 3-meter splash radius, which again equates to a 6-meter splash mathematically. And it effectively means that a sleeping target gets to move around but that's about it.
Yep.
Right? That's why I'm saying like getting weakens like getting polymorph. It's like, oh cool, you get to fucking move, but you're effectively useless.
Yeah. 4 seconds I feel like is where my brain is really looking at. The number of how much damage you're being reduced by. It feels a lot. I don't know. 4 seconds is a fucking long time. 4 seconds is a
which
eternity.
is why Bione got nerfed to 3 seconds. And I think at minimum, if we're going to talk about debuffs here, we should standardize debuffs to
3
or 2.5 even. I don't know, like whatever feels better. Because debuffs don't feel good. Like and that's the thing is like we are just going to turn this into WoW eventually. If there's too many damn debuffs, we're just going to turn this into WoW where like you have to track and learn 20 fucking different things. Like, oh, now I'm sludged. Oh, now I'm blindfolded. Now
gotta love a knockdown. Ooh.
Now I have eczema. Oh, fuck me. Like what how many status effects am I gonna get? Like how many status effects do I have to learn? And then you have to cleanse all of it to get, you know.
Yo, bot me, I have gonorrhea, quick.
Yeah, like I have scurvy. Oh shit. Quick, toss me an orange. Shit. So cool. All right, I think we're done. I don't know. Is there more to add?
No, not really. Oh fuck. I mean, if we are going down the WoW route to like circle back to Mercy to wrap this up, then like let's just remove res and give her a cleanse. Like that's just the
no shit. I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, just give her a cleanse. Fuck it.
But no more cleanses after that. No more.
Sure, yeah, just give like this simple hero one cleanse.
If everyone has a fucking cleanse, then every composition you play is like, you have to play 2 cleanse heroes, and you're throwing if you're not playing 2 cleanse heroes, guys.
It's like, cleanse meta. Everybody knows this.
Has to be cleansed.
Yeah, give Mercy a cleanse, and then I'll see you in 2 years, and then we'll talk about it again.
What is if there was a sleep dart-esque ability? Everything is the same, but for 1 second, the friend that you hit with a similarly hard thing to hit becomes immune to CC.
Well, because we don't have CC anymore, or at least it's significantly
I just invented
reduced.
Bubble.
Yeah,
but Bubble is easier.
A skill shot Bubble.
Oh my!
Skill shot Bubble that cannot be bursted down.
I will say, in that same logic, I think in like 2 years to 3 years time, we will look at like how Harmony Orb is placed and how bubbles are placed, and be like, "Bruh, how did we think this was okay?"
Yeah,
but I will still. I said this in someone's thread recently. I've said this on both Twitter and Reddit, which is to say that regardless of all the anti-heal talk, I still think weakened is a stronger effect. Because weakened to me is nearly equivalent to something like Immortality Field, except Immortality Field you can destroy in about 1 second if you have the damage. Weakened, you just eat shit for 4 seconds. You just suck dick for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what, you just sit there like,
well, so long.
I guess I do nothing for 4 seconds. Yeah,
that's just not fun. You do not. It cannot last that 4 seconds.
It has the strength of Immortality Field, but you can't fucking counterplay it.
Yep.
Is my argument. That's why it's stronger than anti-heal, because at least when you're anti-healed, if you're a Genji that gets anti-healed, it's like, well, if I go hard as a motherfucker and go in there, I might die, but I can still trade, I can still kill, I can still outplay people. You eat a necrotic orb, you literally just cry for 4 seconds. You have a big fucking cry for 4 seconds, you go on Battle.net forums, and you fucking eat your heart out.
Dear Mercy mates. Yeah. It's not good. No bueno. But the right direction, though. Getting close.
Yeah, we are moving closer. We are moving closer. Cool.
All right. Go to Charge?
Charge or Hawai'i? What if we really... I'm thinking of doing Charge last.
Just to Charge last? Okay.
Just to annoy people. And you know what? When we
get to spicy.
Charge,
it's gonna be good.
Get to the Charge, we just won't do it. That'll really piss people off. I don't know. We'll keep them baited. All
right.
What's funny is like they can just look at the timestamps. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. So did you guys like the minions? Okay, no. But seriously, let's talk about Hawaii.
Yes.
So what is the deal with Hawaii? Did someone have a good kind of summary, or should I just dig up the tweet from
Alex Rubens?
From Alex Rubens, thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the issues come slightly in the details, knowing that this is apparently, so, this person is claiming that the first time that they're enforcing some kind of, practice limitation, for those aren't,
which I'm not sure is true.
Sure, very well could be the case. For those who aren't kept up to speed, a member of Conky Esports came out and kind of blew the whistle on some practice issues around the Midseason Madness tournament in Hawaii.
Let's read out some of these tweets. Right, sure. That's probably the right thing to do. Let's read out some of the tweets. I'm also trying to find, by the way, the thread that Mr. X replied in. So if one of you could maybe help me dig that up, because that's what we'll get into next.
I haven't heard that.
There's a Sean Miller tweet, which then got onto Reddit, which then Mr. X replied to on Reddit, and there's a bunch of extra information there that I'm struggling to find right now, but we should probably get into that.
And by the way, I can tell you that discussion is also happening internally the entire time. It's not just playing out on social media. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to assume. Okay, so let's get into what Alex Rubens from the Guards said, and I don't know what position, very high position, within the Cronky Esports umbrella, which covers Gladiators, Gorillas, and the Guard. Here we go. I'm excited to see the LA Gladiators perform at the mid-season event in Hawaii, but the league's approach deserves all scrutiny and is absolutely unacceptable. What he's referring to, before I continue very clearly, only a tiny tangent, is that apparently, and I didn't see this or read about it, but this is just what I heard through the grapevine and people on Reddit talked about it, is Pelican had a stream where he basically said stuff along the lines of like, oh, we can't get hotel, we are not being provided practice equipment for the tournament, and we have to like get our own computers in our hotels and stuff like that. To which Sean Miller responded, and the truth of the matter is that there are player practice areas, but there's limited amount of time because there's not limited amount of practice space. But we'll get into those details in a second. Back to Alex Rubens. First, West teams must travel to Hawaii at their own cost on just days, weeks' notice during the height of summer travel. Most teams, this means they must place top 1 to 3 overall to not lose money attending and are not allowed any practice during travel days. First and foremost, that I think that is a little bit condemning. Like they have to pay for their own travel to get there, and it's a very trying time for all of that.
But by the way, just to give context, in past years there was always this travel stipend that teams for Hawaii got, but from what I could find out, that didn't cover the entire travel expense. For you have to like fly everyone out, and it was basically like a split between the teams and the Overwatch League.
Yep. So continuing on, thank you for the additional info. Once in Hawaii, they're staying in the biggest tourist destination in Hawaii for a COVID event. You think that mean players would practice more, right? Instead, the league is regulating limited practice slots well below what's normally expected for international event practice. This will be addressed in just a minute. This has been addressed by the league, so we're going to get into that. In response to complaints about limited practice time and space, the league instituted a gameplay allotment for the first time ever. If you go past this limited allotment, including any outside non-VOD preparation, you are subject to unspecified disciplinary action. At every other event, we've been able to practice and train outside the PPAs, which is player practice areas. This is purely punitive to not have to fix their current plan. Meanwhile, each team's able to practice and compete from the comfort of their facilities. The league's response was the teams in the East have to wake up early to play, so it's quote-unquote roughly equal. And there's a mind-blown emoji. Missing scrim blocks, flying across the ocean. We have the shortest flight at 5.5 to 6 hours. No practice on travel days, no matter where you land. Limited practice blocks during the event. Threats of punishment for preparing too much versus waking up early. To be clear, it's not the East team's fault either. It's Activision Blizzard Entertainment for forcing a flawed plan. It's also not the league staff. They're great and are just working with what they've been given. It's leadership purposefully making these decisions. When Riot can bring together every team from around the world with no issue, you wonder why Overwatch League can't. for the quote-unquote biggest tournament in Overwatch League history. It's frankly unacceptable, and COVID cannot be an excuse when you've had 3 years to adapt and everyone else has. ABE's reluctance to understand and fix the situation is worrying. Let's get into Sean Miller and a little bit of Mr. X's reply before we dig deeper into this, because there is a discussion to be had here as well. Sean says, League Director Sean Miller says, I'd like to clarify that in Hawaii, teams have a practice area and equipment, official match space, and in the event of positive COVID case, backup play options. Safe international competition remains a priority for us. We're excited for the biggest tournament in our history. Maybe chronologically, we should have done the Sean Miller tweet first. I think that was maybe chronologically earlier, but in any case, yeah. And now about the time allotment, just so we got all the facts out there, just putting all the facts out there. Mr. X responds in the Reddit thread, a bit more info. Teams will have 5 hours minimum practice time per day. They'll have to swap out with teams at some point, so it will be blocks of 2 to 3 hours with a break, and backup play options in case of positive COVID tests. If I had to guess what Pelican might be talking about, is Houston trying to go early and get an Airbnb and boot camp and needing equipment. But yes, the practice rooms at University of Hawaii will have equipment. I think other thread got locked, but someone did mention was Shock and Philly having issues with Grand Final. I believe it was this from Korea. I assume GF he's talking about Grand Final. I wasn't working full time, but I remember the issue there being they had to quarantine for 2 weeks in Korea. Yeah, this was a Grand Final, and couldn't ship anything to the facility. So I believe they brought gaming laptops. I might be misremembering that because it was ages ago, but I do think I remember watching Poco Astra streaming from it. I think that might have been the case. So that is, I believe, pretty much the extent.
Yeah, nothing much.
Sorry, he's got one more major comment. We'll go over this and then we're done. Or at least we're done with just the fact, the statements. Agree it's not ideal for NA teams, but looking options for midseason, it became clear this was the best one. When pivoting, we could have done 2 regional competitions, repeat of the first tournament with no international play till playoffs. That's option 1. Option 2, midseason as planned, most likely would have had to forfeit or pass on teams who weren't eligible to travel just because where their team is located isn't right. Option 3, Hawaii with less teams. Would this have given more practice time? Sure. But just like the above solution, would have felt bad to cut teams just because 5 NA and 3 East is too skewed to East, 6 NA and 2 East might as well be an NA regional, which could have taken away tournament opportunities from teams who are currently playing really well. So looking at it, all those decide to keep the same format, but in Hawaii, no options perfect, but happy we didn't exclude anyone from competing while looking into ways to make it the best possible form of competitive, best possible from a competitive integrity standpoint. NA versus NA matchups earlier to show not to make them stay up late. NA versus NA possibly played on the closest server than the one used for international play. Our comp ops team is doing a ton to try and make things as fair as possible. I think Havala gave some good suggestions in the Discord. Given the situation, try not to exclude or limit either region from competing. So we have statements from both ends here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who wants to dig in?
How do we unpack this?
Let me unravel some of the stuff that Alex Rubin said, as far as I can just like see from my point of view the arguments that have been brought up and whatnot. So one of the first ones is, of course, like, what is the alternative? I think one particular comment that didn't sit right with me was to say that like Riot gets those done no problem. That's not true, right? Our overrepresentation of Chinese teams in the Overwatch League make this a much harder task, and Riot hasn't had a solution to that issue as well, right? So I think the share of teams is an interesting one. I think theoretically that's probably the best leverage point where they could have decreased that amount, therefore increased the amount of practice hours for each team attending, because theoretically, like, now you're dividing the same room on less teams, therefore have more PPA time for each team. I think there is some hard force stuff, which is quite interesting. So, okay. The one thing that I agree is, from an organizational standpoint, is a little bit of a problem is you're in the middle of Hawaii in a tourist center, COVID is still running, and like the travel is also not covered. I think that's a legitimate thing that an organization can be worried about. Maybe there could have been a more remote position. I think it's a workable location, but the league also had like 2 years to find a better one, theoretically, right? I think you could talk about like maybe Korea should have been the location all the time, even though that is probably also a risk-reward situation where you now have to get everyone visas and whatnot. Like, just present like an alternative that is workable, and then we can see the pros and cons. But to say that Riot is patently making it better than Overwatch when the situations aren't the same is a little bit disingenuous. Then, okay,
I just want to add to that really quickly. This will be brief. People will bring up Valorant as well. It's like, oh, but that's got no Chinese teams. Yeah, but they had Russian teams and Russian players, and those players couldn't fucking make it, could they? There was huge issues with getting FPX over, which they ended up not. That was, by the way, the best European team. The number one European team couldn't make the event, so they just had to cut the team. Yeah. The fourth best team had to come on in. And then you had Fnatic, where a majority of their roster couldn't make it either because of those same restrictions. And so there are problems. There are problems logistically, even among Riot, to get the teams to Iceland, Denmark, wherever they want to hold their competitions for Masters and all that kind of stuff. And then they had issues at MSI with the Chinese team. But at least, look, I'll be straight. At least they did play it in Korea, and they did at least have low ping, and RNG was able to play on super low ping. But the amount of criticism, backlash regarding that entire situation was pretty high from the league audience. So I think I agree. It is very disingenuous to say that Riot simply they just made it happen. It was like, well, not without some blood on their hands too.
So the workaround feels a little wonky to me in terms of like the fairness aspect in trying to equalize, because you almost need like a scoring system in order to look at fairness. And I think each side has believably argued that they are the more disadvantaged one. But let's look at the NA team need to travel. They miss a couple of days of practice. Then they are not at their home facility and only get so much practice hours that they can have access to the PPAs. It's a little interesting that Mr. X says a minimum amount of 5 hours. I'm not sure how they're going to enforce the game allotment time. If it's a minimum, they should have assigned a maximum, right? That makes sense in order for these teams.
Minimum?
He said in the post, he said minimum 5
his word
hours.
is just minimum.
Yeah. It should be like a maximum of 6 hours or something, because that then amounts to the allotment time. And I think, from what I know, that's the internally communicated duration. Now, what is the gameplay allotment time? And that's a little brain breaking. I'm not sure if it's fair. It's just very wonky. So gameplay allotment time is the amount of time that East teams get to practice Overwatch during the Hawai'i period. Okay? So what this means is, after that time, and don't nail me like how long that is. It could be 6 hours, could be 5. I'm not sure. Eastern players are not allowed to play Overwatch. They can play other games
at all.
The Eastern teams,
no rank, nothing.
The Eastern teams need to believably prove that their players are not playing Overwatch out of the allotted time slots, or not slots, but like durations. As far as I know, outside utilities such as AimLab and whatnot is allowed. Other games are allowed. You cannot play. So, for instance, it would be easy for Blizzard to say, okay, all your tournament accounts are now limited to 6 hour durations. After that, it locks out and you can't practice anymore. That would be one way how to assure game allotment time so you don't overscrim. They're going a step further, because then NA players also don't get access to more PPA time in order to practice outside. So, for instance, pugging or like playing in ranked in the beta. That is also being enforced onto the Asian teams, as far as I have gotten to know that. And it seems hard to be enforced. As far as I heard, like, any reasonable amount of invasion of that space is actually being, or invasion, beyond not invading the individual player's privacy. But like, looking into the practice facility of teams and whatnot. So with all of that, it's a very wonky solution that, in the outcome of it, just looking at the allotted practice time, might be argued to be fair, right?
I have a solution.
Ideally, every team would have unlimited access to one room where everyone of their players has a PPA. We don't have those resources. It could be argued that A, you need to decrease the amount of teams going there, or you need to define a different venue in order to assure that everyone has PPA access. Okay? That's not the case. We don't have those resources. Also, making the comparisons to Riot Games there is a little... That's a legit criticism. We could have handled that differently, but please, like, I wanted to hear like what the alternatives were. And I think in my mind, yes, like the ratio of like 6-3 or whatever doesn't feel entirely fair. I think that's still preferable to the current outcome. I agree. This is to the point where we can discuss those differences, right? You had a point there.
If I'm an Asian team, what I do now is I install computers in every single bathroom. And then my excuse is like, guys, we're just sorry, we had a bad round of food poisoning. Yeah, I don't know how to say it, but my team, all 5 of them, all 5 starting players, are just spending 3 hours at a time in a bathroom. I can't tell you why though.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is very hard to enforce. Like, who's to say that a player doesn't go home, have their own PCs, and just place on a new account or whatever?
But I respect that they're trying to make it, because here's the thing: is like all the concerns and criticisms from last year, especially from NA teams, saying like, well, it's not very fair that they have to be the ones to travel and they are affected by all sorts of the travel conditions, when the Asian teams get to just stay in the facility and play as normal, right? That's valid. I think that is really valid. So, this whole situation sounds a lot more overblown. When you just read the headline, you're like, whoa, they're restricting playtime. When the truth is, they're restricting it for the teams because they don't have the PPAs available for the NA teams. And I think the forehead response is like, well, why don't they have enough? Why don't aren't they at University of Hawaii? Can't they just get more? And the answer is no, they can't, because the university is active. Like, there's students there. They're still doing normal university stuff. Like, they don't have the space for 8 separate teams to have PPAs. What they do have is enough. I actually don't know exactly how many it is, but enough to support whatever it is that they've decided that they can support. So I believe it's 2. I believe it's 1 match area and 1. I'm not exactly sure how many PPAs, but I do know that teams have to share. I do know that you have to, it's like 2 teams per PPA. So 2 teams will have to share a single PPA. There's just not enough of them, unfortunately. And
I think we do well in order to recognize that this is Plan B. We had a different Plan A. We wanted to go to China, right?
Right.
And that...
Sorry, what?
Like, Hawaii again this year is Plan B. We had Plan A.
Yes.
We wanted to go to China, and then that thing popped up. No. Was it not China? Was it Korea?
It was meant... It's in the US. The Plan A was to hold it in the US.
Ah, okay. Right. Yeah, okay. I remember. Yes.
The problem is they couldn't reliably get the Chinese teams, especially Shanghai Dragons, to the US.
Yes.
Now, which means, like Mr. X said, there are only 2 solutions. You're either continuing with the NA LAN international event, and you just say, well, fuck these Asian teams. Cool, Philly and Seoul can come over, so we get 2 APAC teams and screw everyone else. Or you just play a regional LAN again, and you don't have an international.
Yeah.
Or I guess you go to Hawaii. So I lied. There's 3 options. Or you go to Hawaii. Yeah. Those are 3 options, right?
Yeah, and like there's another thing where you try to weigh up two options or like 2 situations. So, like Alex Rooms seems to almost meme on the fact that like Eastern teams have to get to practice from home and get to practice in their own facilities, and weighing that up against like having
they have to wake up early too. You gotta remember that.
It is very early for some of them.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Right? Like very early for gamer hours. I think like that there's arguably a case of jet lag that one has to consider here, right?
Sure.
I think the difference, I would have to look it up. Is it like 8 hours from usual competition time? Like that they moved it forward? 8 hours is a lot to move your day around.
When your normal competition time is, I believe it'd be like 7 or 6 p.m. in China to what would be sometime in the morning in China. So it would be about 8 hours. I mean, I see both sides of that conversation. I think there's a side that's like, oh, boo-hoo, you have to wake up early.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side, which is like, well, you know, it is a significant enough shift around that it does impact things. No one's saying it's as bad as flying and having actual jet lag and actually traveling and actually having to deal with the whole PPA situation. No one's saying that. I think you know, both sides can meet in the middle and say that, okay, it is a problem. It's probably it's easily not as big of a problem as actually going to Hawaii. But we shouldn't discount it as a complete non-issue either, because it's not a non-issue. There is some issue there. It's just necessarily maybe slightly overblown. I don't know. I don't know what the status of the issue is, but yeah, my point stands.
The thing is, we're trying to ham-fist artificial fairness, where otherwise there would be no fairness, and that's preferable, right? Like, what are you going to do? Like,
what's preferable?
Like,
what do you mean?
Okay, so last year we had the legitimate criticism of like teams like Atlanta that said like, we're having here the short end of the stick. They need to somehow like also be disadvantaged, or we need to find different solutions. Now that we have those, like, it's never going to be perfect. What are you going to do unless you all come together in the same location? And even then it could be argued there's home and away advantage. There's always going to be something. It's about the magnitude of differences. I think it's completely fair for someone like Alex Rubens in his position to argue for his team's sake into the direction of pushing towards more competitive integrity there. There's also a legitimate claim for the league that, I mean, especially the league, like, let's be honest, like, have you looked at the viewership, my guys? Like, what are we going to do? Like, get a Zeppelin and play there in international waters in order for everyone to arrive there? Like, what are your solutions?
Cruise
like
ship.
Yeah,
cruise ship on land. The only problem is, how do you connect to the internet to broadcast it? But, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, like, what are the, like, give us some actionable solutions. And I get it's not your job, but like, if you had actionable solutions, I would feel better about criticizing the league for that. It's not optimal. It is not. There are inflictions on competitive
actionable solutions. Here's one: to play devil's advocate, or actually to play on the side of Rubens for the sake of argument. An actionable solution would be Blizzard, fork out the money, get a different space. Maybe you have to pay a lot of money for it. Get a big enough space that supports 8 PPAs. Not just fucking lock it in. Is it expensive? Yeah. But it's the best solution for the sake of the teams.
Yeah. Sure.
That would be an actionable solution, but it would also be an expensive one.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair to say also. Like, you book hotels that allow you, like, have good internet access and allow you to set up PPAs in the practice room. So like, you can get just mega splooge it, buy all the PCs or rent them or whatever you could do, and just like throw money at the problem and it would solve it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a legitimate solution, I think. Yeah.
You know, the problem is they have to go to Hawaii. If this was just in Dallas, they could just go to Esports Arena. Or in LA, there's a number of, you know, locales where they can just get 8 PPAs. Like, getting 8 PPAs would probably not even be that hard, depending on where you go. The problem is, if you go to fucking Hawaii, no, it just becomes more difficult. But that's the only place you can go within the United States that will give you low enough ping, playable ping, for teams to not leave the US, because Blizzard doesn't want to deal with the whole international travel thing. I mean, look, would it be better for teams to go to Korea? But then, like we mentioned, there's a whole visa situation. So while that is also technically an actionable solution, it is also still a very difficult solution. Now we're not just talking about money. This isn't just about like, oh, Blizzard doesn't want to spend the money. It's like, no, well, there's major logistical issues there, because now we're doing, someone's internationally traveling, and it's easier. And people ask, well, why would they want to do international travel within the US than to do this in the first place? Was like, it's a US company. Most of the teams are in the US. You're only flying 4 teams in from Asia.
Yes.
It's a lot more manageable than trying to get 8 teams into Korea, right? So,
yeah, I mean,
that's the answer.
To be honest, the fact that a lot of the Chinese teams were located in and around Shanghai. I understand, like, you can't choose necessarily, but that already didn't hedge your your bets there, or like provided great security that you were definitely going to be able to travel internationally, right? Like,
yeah, not ideal.
It's hard. Like, once again, like, what do you do? Do you put everyone in Korea, force them to stay in Korea and practice from there, even though it's that's also not going to fly, right?
Because I think, and again, to humor what Alex Rubin said, it's like, okay, I think the whole Riot thing maybe is a little bit too full ahead, but at the same time, if I was to really give him the benefit of the doubt, I would say that he's potentially even referring to the fact that, well, Riot held MSI in Korea and managed to get all these teams to Korea, and okay, RNG get to stay at home, but they still managed to get everyone to Korea. And, you know, Riot Games is still a US company, actually a Chinese company. Yeah, I don't know. They somehow worked it out. And so optically, I see his point. I don't know if with more context, I don't think it's as easy as what he says, but I do see his point. I do see what he's getting at.
Also, just to add a little bit of context in terms of like saying Riot has figured that out, like literally 2 hours ago, PR, like someone from PRX, that's the Valorant team competing at Masters, like Forsaken was diagnosed with COVID. So now your bubble or whatever you're going there is also compromised, right? Like to say they don't have these issues when both you have travel and visa issues for some of your teams. Some of your teams need to play with standards because of the visa situation, and you have the COVID issue, and say that you solved it is disingenuous.
Yes, and I believe to provide another example of another company that also has suffered issues trying to hold LAN events right now, I think the ALGS, the Apex League, went on, and like if maybe AVRL, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe somebody got COVID and their team was just disqualified. They didn't have any backup options.
They did not have backup options for COVID. No,
correct. Right, so like that is another issue you have to be not necessarily proud of, but credit the league with, that they do have backup options in the case of this happening, that somebody does get sick. Your team isn't just written off entirely. Everybody can get there. It's just the rules trying to attempt to make things as fair as possible are a little draconian, let's say.
I think that the perspective needs to shift from like, LANs are easy to do, everyone should just do them. If you're paying to do them, you fucking suck. To holy shit, it's a bit of a miracle if you can do a LAN, good on you, pat yourself in the back, because that was not easy to do. That's a very different perspective to have. And I think a lot of people take it for granted and just be like, oh yeah, Riot have LANs, and then expect that everyone should just have LANs. And so therefore, it looks pretty fucking bad that Overwatch League can't have a LAN when apparently everyone's having LANs. But the optics around it is not that the LANs are exceptional. The optics is that if you're not having a LAN, that is exceptional in the case of it, being an exception to the rule.
Right.
When the rule is no one should have LANs, and if you're doing it, you're doing great, and not the other way around, correct?
Yeah. And I will also say, I think what we should also consider about this entire discussion is that probably all the facts and things that get, the characters going here, or the emotions flowing, are not on the table publicly, right? Like, there's always going to be, like, it's not a secret that in practically every single homestand, there have been similar issues where it's just insufficient, right? Like what is being offered. And that has been true since Overwatch League started. Like, legitimately.
Can I ask a question on that front then?
Yes.
Have they ever limited you in terms of what you could do? It was just a limitation of the league resources. Is that correct?
They never limited.
They never overstepped you to say no quick play, no ranked, no beta. You can't play.
I don't think they did that before, but I might be wrong. Right? Like,
that's my biggest issue, is that is a bit draconian for my taste. If I'm a team and I have the resources to try to front the bill or create a solution for my own team and myself, I don't understand why the league is trying to get in front of me trying to facilitate my team.
Here's the thing. There's a legitimate case where we're now in a business situation where that is unfair. Like, while we were on the road and we were preparing to be on the road, for teams to come up with solutions, some had Airbnbs next to the practice facility where they could sit up and they were flying in, or they had like portable PCs. Atlanta Reign had their little
their bus
van with like
bus,
full PPA or like not PPA but PC systems with like top line gear that they were going to drive around NA in order to have like top tier practice everywhere. We're not in that environment. We're not at a point where like teams are necessarily able to prepare for that and on short notice, and we're not in the financial situation where that makes reasonable sense. And it's just, I don't know, that's one of the most glaring issues of throwing money at the problem.
Yeah.
Where you cannot outperform that with smart usage, if that makes sense.
I think, again, my issue is that, like, for the teams that do have the resources, why would you stop them? I get it's not fair, but I really don't see a difference, and maybe I'm the dumb one here, than looking at a team's, budget resources. It's like, yeah, London has a pretty small budget. Is that fair when you have a team like the Gladiators running around spending God knows what? When you have a team like Toronto running around spending God knows what? Like, that's not fair. So do we limit them? No, you let them spend what they want. If somebody wants to come out, if the Glads want to come out and spend money on laptops, why not let them? I feel like that improves the product, no?
To be fair, and I'm going to be a little bit, this is slightly coming in bad faith, but to be fair, like, budget caps for salaries and stuff exist for the reason of like, okay, well, one person just spending Omega bucks.
Sure,
else.
Yeah. That's I feel like that's reasonable versus like, you can't play the game even though you could feasibly do it on your own dime. Like, that just seems like a lot to me for the sake of like what is fair. It just seems, it feels like an overreach.
You're trying to balance things to the point where the problem is, I guarantee you let whoever do what they want with their money and do the thing, and then the other team just complains about like, well, that's not fair, because it does go beyond. How do I argue this? It gets in the territory of like, well, now if you want to stay competitive, you have to do this thing because the other team shoved the costs up, right? Does that make sense? It's like now that this team has done this and paid all this money to get this practice in and all that kind of stuff, if you don't do that, you're just losing, and so everyone feels pressure to do that, and now everyone's just spending more money because of this one team that's doing that. If that makes sense, like one team is just shoving everyone else's costs up by doing that, and I can see it from that perspective.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but and maybe this is where I'm trying to wrap my head on Yiska's point. Was yours kind of similar, but there was a longer amount of time to give people to kind of prepare, this new meta of practice, and now
it's just such a binary yes no, like
sure, yeah.
Like this was a solution. I mean, we've known for a bit, but you didn't know if you were going to qualify. Like, what legitimate play does, for instance, someone like Christopher now have in order to prepare his team legitimately? You couldn't, right? Like, there's no like Christopher. Like, what should he have done? Like, looked at New Egg and tracked prices for 3080s in order to get the best bargain price, and like have everyone like pool some money. Like, this is the Hawaii travel allotment for hardware. Like, there's no smart play where you can catch up. And you could argue, like, minimum investments should be raised. Like, we have theoretically a minimum roster cap, which is 6 times 50K, or 50,700. But, yeah, I think I'm leaning, like, idealistically. And you know me, I want to be idealistic about this. I just think we gotta realize that we're not in a time and place in this league where,
no, of course,
like, just there will be owners that will pony up, and you'll just sit there and like, what should be like the celebration of the highest level of competitive integrity, and like a celebration of Overwatch, is some poor dudes sitting there on their 5 hours of scrim time, who might not even be getting good scrims, who like. Otherwise had already a really hard job getting there, getting further disadvantaged, while others like sitting in their much more high-class hotels. By the way, I think the Overwatch League is paying the hotel rooms. They're allotting them there.
Yeah, they're doing that. They are.
Good.
It's the least they could do.
I mean, both of I can see both approaches, and I think both are there's no good solutions here, man. Like, ideally,
no, there's not.
Like,
I don't finger wag at the league too hard.
Yeah, if we were to do it the real American model, we'll just like have a much tighter window what minimally needs to be invested a year and what maximally can be invested. And I think, honestly, a lot of teams are much further away from what is reasonably the minimum that they should invest than the maximum.
Sure.
Right?
Agreed.
So, yeah. We're trying to find elegant solutions to a wonky problem that is just like just in the current moment. We're trying to balance so many interests, and while I do agree that there are definitely rooms of improvement, we also have to realize that these solutions had to be taken at very wonky timescales. I think we do well in recognizing that this is Plan B. So some disadvantage or some caveats should be, or some additional rope should be given to those solutions. At the same time, we can always push for improvements, and I think nobody's an asshole here. That's another nobody's the asshole. Yeah. Oh. Alex Rubens is absolutely in his right to push for his team's improved performance ability. That's a team that wants to splooge. That's a team that has won the last stage, that wants to win as much as possible, has the ability to win as much as possible. Argue your point to the best of your ability, and there's no issue there. No asshole for sure. The league has certain restrictions because of the realities where Overwatch is in 2022. Could they shell out more? Yeah. Are you going to shout at Mr. X, who's not determining the budget for the or Sean Miller? Also, and then also, like, of course, the Asian teams also have to have their situation respected, and also we have to recognize that, yes, while they get to live in their own practice facilities and whatnot, it's still like it's a reasonable disadvantage to wake up at different times, especially for gamers.
It is.
And to move your competitive window. And I think people really underestimate how much preparation goes into that, because your everyday schedule, from when does food happen, when do the scrims happen, when do you go out, when do you go to the gym, when do you wake up, how long scrim, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do I book scrims with other teams and whatnot, is all determined by that 1 or 2 matches you have that weekend at an allotted time range that is never further apart from each other than like 3 hours, right? So they're optimizing their performance in order for it to happen within that 3-hour window. Now you're moving it 8 hours earlier. That is legitimately equal to having 8 hours of jet lag, admittedly in the same location at Mama's house, basically.
Yes, exactly. Right. It's different, but it's not, it's not minuscule.
Which is why I think last year for the finals, when both Chengdu and Shanghai had to go to
they had to travel, right?
Some location they had to travel to. Okay, it's not the same as going to Hawaii, but at least it required them travel, required them to play in PPAs. They couldn't be just in their facilities. I mean, you can definitely monitor them more if that was your goal and you want to do that. Yeah, there was more. They had to be taken out of their comfort zone as well, which I respected. So I don't know how that could have worked. If that could have worked, I think that would have not gone down well with the Asian teams, because that would have been someone's additional cost. I don't know who. I mean, at minimum, even if the league pays for, like, okay, we're gonna get a venue like last time, and teams are going to come here and we'll set their things up, and blah blah blah, and maybe the league could even pay for accommodation, but there'll still be some costs involved for the Asian teams that they would feel is like kind of unnecessary. I don't know, maybe I'm giving them too much rope here and they should just suck it up and deal with it the way NA teams would deal with it, to be fair. But I'm just saying that there would have been significant pushback on that as well from the other side.
Should make sense. You got to also, fight for your teams as well. I'm going to say something hot. I think this is not going to go over well, but at this point, hearing how much and believing how much live events mean to the fan base, I almost would have preferred at this point if we didn't go Hawaii and we just did another regional. And I am one for international competition. I love it.
That's
I
not
think
that
it's
hot.
Great.
That take is not that hot. I can tell you right now. It is not that hot of a take.
I'll be surprised.
You are not the only person I've heard with that take.
Yeah. At this point,
I don't necessarily hate the take either, because this is almost, as much as I love international competition as well, this is almost creating more problems than it solves.
Because you can't get it right. Like we're having to do a weird overreach where like Blizzard is like dedicating resources to monitoring people so they don't practice, which like on paper just makes my brain melt.
Once you get into that stage, it's just like, fuck it, this ain't worth it anymore,
No. Let's throw a celebration. Let's get people in an arena. Let's get some fans. Let's get some butts in seats. Now,
what? Actually, I go on.
Okay.
Why don't we do our normal regional lands?
Yeah.
And then figure out a way for the top team from each region to face each other in a final. Like, well, we could even do that. Like, that's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. Now you're only dealing with one team from NA traveling and maybe one team from Asia traveling, if that.
You could have done it in that way and then made that, like, you could have always had regional tournaments with LANs in each region and then have, if it works, if COVID allows for it, we also do the international with like 4 teams. I think
unironically, I think that's the future of the league. I think that's exactly what we do to like appease the homestand model like fans.
That would be,
and like also still keep like a safe like distance from one another and because not sell out events.
I get Mr. X's position. It's just like,
of course,
you don't want to be cutting 8 NA teams down to less than that, because you're just punishing teams that fairly qualified. They qualified fair and fucking square, and you're just gonna cut. You don't. It feels awful to cut them. Like competitive integrity is at stake if you just cut teams like that when they can competed and qualified fairly. Like teams like London get punished from shit like that, So yeah, that doesn't feel good. So there is no like eloquent solution except do one team in Hawaii that gets to play in a final against the one Asian. I don't know. That's all I can think of. That seems.
I like that solution. I think that's good, to be honest with you. I don't know the logistics and like what the league would like view that.
Apparently, we can't support 8 teams in Hawaii, so let's just support 2 or 1 or 2. I don't know.
Correct.
Just do that.
Exactly. I think that like probably would have had to be like just in an actionable way. That probably would have had to been decided before the schedule was made.
Yes,
but I think that is the future of the league. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, if COVID, while it's severely diminished and like we definitely have a handle on it, it's still not gone.
Hindsight 2020, that probably would have been the right 100%. Call to make. But that is a very hindsight 2020 call.
Agreed. 100%.
It's hard to know ahead of time when your original goal, your plan A, was to bring everyone together, and well, Shanghai had its lockdown, and the plan kind of went to shit very quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, I think knock on wood.
The issue here is that we're not necessarily moving forward. It's like we're adding more goop to the bag, where there's just more hurdles to jump over and more like obfuscation. It just doesn't seem good.
Yeah. It's not improving. I don't know if we have anything final really to say on that, but I think it's probably about time to move on.
You finally touch charge.
And that's going to be the whole episode, guys. So thank you. So, the Guangzhou Charge.
This is a good one. I like this.
Are doing things. They're doing Mick things. Whoo! Yeah. Big changes after 2 failed stages. Assistant coach Youngjin has been removed. He's departed. That, by the way, is the real Youngjin.
Is C9 Youngjin.
The real C9.
God bless him.
To be honest, I'm not gonna lie, because he's so infamous, he is gonna be remembered for all of history in Overwatch esports. He will be remembered forever. So
He will be.
not everyone can just be famous for the right reasons, but sometimes we can get infamous for some of the wrong reasons. Hey, you take those. Unique and develop. Fortunately or unfortunately, also departing the team, as well as Rio.
Yes.
So Rio's gone, Unique's gone, Develop's gone, Youngjin is gone. Instead, what we are going to get is no announced tank, so Krong is going to be the solo tank for a while. I don't hate that, but it does mean that I expect a lot more out of Krong. Replacing Unique is going to be Xerneas, aka Yveltal. He had a name change. Replacing Develop is going to be Jimmy. And I suppose replacing Eileen, but yes and no. But just adding another DPS to make sure they have 3 DPSs is going to be Yiska's favorite player, a Predator.
Bang. Can I?
Did you Coom yet, Yiska?
Okay. Yeah, I did Coom. I thought, like, what the fuck took you so long?
Sure, yeah.
But I think what we should also put some eyes on, because literally nobody else will, is to sort of see, like, Rio leaving this team is at the end of an era, because this kid was the tank for this team forever. He's the definition of mid, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think, like, you could argue that it was now time for him to leave, because that's not good enough anymore. It's the most invisible player based on playtime in Overwatch League ever. But he was also, even during the high time of the Charge, never a real liability up until now, I think. And then it's fair that they get out now. It's, I feel like there's a lot of reliability there. I think, even if you think about, like, the strongest times of Charge, that's Krong's era, in my mind. Right? Like, it's Krong Sigma, like, that's when Gargoyle was still a good Sigma. That's around that time, right? Rio was just there. And there's a lot to be said about players that are just there and never in the way and just still celebrate big victories. But I think it's worth recognizing people like that. They really, are never stand out, but also never the problem.
Yep. He was a job doer. He did his job. And that's all you could really ask from him. He was never really going to pop off.
Job doer.
He did his job. And you know what? I was a Rio apologist for a long time. Like, this kid does not get the credit that I think, like, he deserves. Like, nobody's ever looking at Rio as like, oh man, you fed there. Oh man, you threw that away. Like, he was just fine. Yeah. Like, that's a lock. Like, I know my tank is not going to fuck around.
He's a job doer, like that 9-to-5 salary man that's been at the company for 50 years.
He gets it done.
And he still hasn't retired yet. He's a 70-year-old man working the same position for the last 20 years. He's a job doer. He's a blue-collar job doer. He rolls his sleeves up and he does the job.
And I can appreciate that. And it's in a way, it is a little sad. It is a little sad to see him go. Hopefully, there's something else for him out there, but yeah, it was probably time in the preseason, but I agree with Yiska. It's probably, he deserves a little bit of a send off. So shout outs to you, Rio.
Yeah, it is an end of an era. It is an end of an era.
Start of a new one.
Eileen gone as well. So you both 2 OG Charge players are gone. We are in a new period for Charge altogether. But an exciting one. So let's also talk about the fact that, okay, we lose those 3 players. I feel a little bit bad for Develop because I feel like he had more to show, but this was maybe the wrong team for him. Maybe he was miscoached. I just feel like he had a lot of potential coming out of contenders that was not going to be realized on this team, sadly. Maybe on a different team it could have been realized. I think he got a lot of flack and a lot of targeting from everyone else watching. Some very justified, and some is just like, I don't know, like, people like to point fingers like, well, whose fault is it? Who sucks on this team?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I've even seen Choice One have bad games. He has plenty more good games than bad games, but
sure, yeah.
listen, I think overall this team has had some major team issues that's been going on for 2 years now. You could even argue 3, but we'll just say 2. And no, we'll just say 2. It can't really be 3 because we had the actual win in 2020, didn't we? So it can't be 3. Let's just say 2 then, to be fair. So, but I'm all for changing the guard. This will also appease the Chinese fans, by the way, who are really pissed that Eileen got dropped because they're just losing more and more Chinese players from this team. But they're just going to add 3 Chinese players. And this, by the way, Charge right now are like, how do I describe them? They basically look at Shanghai Dragons, look at Chengdu Hunters, and they're the team that goes, "You made this? No, I made this."
Yes.
It just like takes.
Thank you.
Molly, Molly develop. It's like you kind of had a smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Debatably, it's not one of those like $80 buffets you go to. It's one of those like cheaper buffets. You're not getting the finest cuts of meat, but you are getting all you can eat. Yeah. So you're just taking bits and pieces from these other teams. Like, oh yeah, get me a develop, get me a Molly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, your Veltil, Jimmy.
A Prida. Ooh, that's a choice cut. Yep. Give me.
Yeah, you find one choice cut. You're like, holy shit, a Prida. Get the one choice cut, and they're like, damn, dude. There's a ribeye in here.
Yeah,
amongst
exactly.
all this, there's a single ribeye. Holy.
And that's where, like, to play with the metaphor, that's where Charge needs to be, that like that nice mom and pop shop that's not on like all the food reviews, but like, boy, howdy, do they do a lot with what they have, right? If you can get that ribeye, if you can get the resources that you have, and you can cook a mean dish, that's what the Charge needs to become, because you have been gifted a plethora of resources at your disposal. Yvetal is now Xerneas, a fantastic, statistically, a world-class main support. Fantastic player, a huge upgrade. A Prida, arguably a Rookie of the Year candidate coming into the season, but because of, the Chengdu circumstances, agreed. Try to draw that caveat there. Is going to be an impactful player.
Charge would have to win the Summer Showdown, and a Prida would have to diff. He would have to diff Lip, Fitz, Stalker, Prophet, Flit, all of. He would have to diff fucking every single one of them,
and that's just not going to happen.
And then he can get Rookie of the Year.
Right.
I'm gonna give it to him. I will personally give. I don't give a fuck who I have to fight. I will break into Sean Miller's office. I will steal that award, and I will fucking give it to a Prida myself if he does that.
I cannot understate how big of a move up this is for the Charge. And really, you look at like the Hunters, you look at the Fusion, look at the Dragons as they stand now, and I can't help but start to wonder if Charge is now sitting within them with the moves that they've made today. That's how impactful these are. The Charge can now be considered, just on paper value alone, a mid-table team.
I'm excited for the mid-table because we're about to have 0 like completely bad teams in APAC.
APAC's about to be real fucking interesting.
Like all 7 teams competitive. Fucking sign me up. Oh wait, I've already been signed up. Let's go.
This is a huge deal, and like people even poo-poo on Jimmy, but like I'm gonna circle back to something we brought up on the show. Like you go back and watch AVRL's kind of co-stream or casting over, maybe reviewing. I mean, still, but like Jimmy did not look like the same player that he did the season prior. Like this kid either has improved or is like sitting in an environment that he's actually being able to thrive in. Like maybe he'll just be a role player, maybe he'll just be a hit scan guy, but like that's okay with me.
Yeah, like, he'll be decent. I think he's always been decent. I think he's, I don't know if he had some. Okay, I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to try and make some excuses for his performances on Chengdu. I think Chengdu early on definitely were not as exciting as Chengdu later on. Let's just be real about that. But yeah, I'm not going to try and put too much blame. I'm not going to play either side. I'm both not going to put too much blame on Jimmy, and I'm also not going to make excuses for him. I'm just going to sit down in the middle, like the fence sitter I am. Yeah. With that fence peg straight up my butthole. I'm just a fucking career fence sitter, and I love it. I love that shit. But
Choi finally has a DPS partner that I feel like he can consistently count on. That's nuts, right? That's huge.
If Prida actually pops off, Chengdu fans are gonna be livid. They will be seething, and I can't blame them. I can't blame them for seething because they'll look at a Prida and be like, "Bro, we could have had him. Yep, we did have him. We should have had him.
Yeah, should have.
Fuck's sake." They'll look at a Predator and Choi. They'll look at a Predator and Choi just absolutely fuck, and they'll be like, "Wow."
I think people are really going to start to wake up to how good Choi Se-won is. I think people are going to be impressed by everything that I feel like all pundits have been saying about Aprita. I think people are going to start wisening up to Xerneas and how good he's been for a while. I think this team is a contender. I feel comfortable saying this. I think Charge is a lock for top 4 next stage.
Really? A lock?
No.
A lock.
I think they are a lock.
That's a fucking statement. A lock.
Yep.
They have a long break though, right? Like
they do.
Apex
and I think that only
later.
helps.
No. Let me be straight about something. They will not have. Okay, their next match isn't until August 18th, but don't act like they're just all fucking grinding away as a team until then.
Oh, no.
These 3 new players are still on Uprising. I always do this. When I see UP, I think of Uprising. Ultra Prime Academy, which is Guangzhou's academy team, playing in fucking contenders. They're playing with their contenders team. Playing the entire first contenders tournament before they're going to go to the Charge and start screwing with the Charge. So it's not like a Predator and Choi Se-won are there buddying.
No, they're not.
With each other, developing synergy, because a Predator's got to fucking play with his contenders team first.
True.
So, yeah. I mean... there's going to be teething. Let's just calm our expectations a little bit. There will be teething issues. There's going to be a bit of time where they need to get together, work out their comm structure. Like, this is now a majority Chinese team with 2 Korean members instead of it being the other way around. That's a major difference. Like that is a considerable difference.
Sure.
How do they work out that comm structure? How do they work out? And by the way, Predator hasn't played on a mixed team before. He's only played on Chinese teams.
True.
How do we work that out? Then you have to build the synergy. You got guys that haven't played together before. You have to work on that shit. Like, I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I think they're going to need a bit of time to work it out, especially considering the new guys will be late because they have to finish playing contenders.
I don't know the logistics of this. So I do have to wonder if this even actually pans out, but I do see a world where that is a weird boon for them that they have to play in contenders. Because is there not like a lapse period of like playing on this patch versus last? Does that make sense? Like this patch isn't like the new live patch is not going to be rolled out, and feasibly I would guess that there is going to be like the OPR isn't going to be updated. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
No, it will be because the contenders teams have to play on OPR.
Okay, maybe that's eventually. A little bunk then.
They did
eventually.
They play on OPR once they reach like the top 8. I don't know if it's exactly the same for each region. Anyway, so I see what you mean. You're saying actually these players could get an advantage because they get to scrim and compete on the new patch earlier than everyone else. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being a situation as well.
And I don't think they need to be world beaters. I don't think they need to be coming for Seoul and Shanghai, but I think Spark need to be a little worried. I think Fusion need to be a little concerned because I do believe the Charge are now within that competitive range. Like this, they're not a buy team anymore. They're not just a forget me. It's a easy 3-0. This is a team that can compete depending on what the meta looks like. And again, we don't know what that looks like, but just on paper value alone, if they came into this stage, maybe even the season with this team, I think the standings of this region look completely different. I think people would be surprised at where Charge might sit. I do think this team is that good at this point.
They are definitely like their first 2 matches. The first one is against the Dragons,
Shanghai. Yeah.
And the second one is against the Valiant.
Yep.
That seems
to
be
a 1
like,
in 1 week.
I don't know.
I think that's a 1
games. No, I'm just kidding.
That's I'm not sure.
I think that's a 1 in 1 week.
I think you
go 1 in 1. You can. I 100% am.
Nah. Sorry, in APAC.
Nah.
I am not going to assume that. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. I don't want to be disappointed by the Charge, so I'm just going to be cautiously optimistic.
You say in the middle of APAC, right, Joe?
Sure, yeah. I'd say firmly in the middle.
Okay,
I'd say 4.
Then you would need to find 3 teams that are better then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Valiant, Fusion, Hunters.
You're high.
Okay.
They said Fusion as well. Shit. And as you can see, I'm big on the Fusion training. So. Shit.
I think this patch is going to, and maybe AVRL, you can speak to this after coming from a Contenders broadcast. I think this patch is going to be a significant meta shift. I think the lapse.
Oh yeah.
You see what I'm talking about? Like this is going to be a big change of pace. I don't think what we look at now. I think there needs to be like a reset of where we're looking at teams. And I don't know that I look at the Hunters as like, yeah, this is their meta coming in, like to watch out. And granted, I'll leave open the possibility for an APAC twist on things. Maybe they see something that NA doesn't. But I caution just like leaving things as is. I think Valiant are an easy one. I think Fusion Hunters could be in there. I think Spark could be in there. I think the only two teams I'm comfortable putting within the top 4 are Seoul Dynasty and the Shanghai Dragons, and everybody else is up for grabs. You have 2 spots that's a free for all.
I think they haven't made the changes that are good enough for them to even leave last place at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
That's nuts to me.
Okay, are we talking about like physically leaving through points, or are we talking about power ranking leave?
Power ranking.
I would say power ranking as well. Yeah, that's a take. Shit. I don't understand how you can look at the Los Angeles Valiant roster and go,
I'd be very surprised if they get more than a map against Valiant that first weekend.
Would you like to bet on that?
Sure, yeah. First weekend, sure. I'll give you that.
Sure.
What would you like to bet for a map?
And then also like to say that Fusion is going to be worse than them is outrageous when they probably will have a top 4 finish this.
Can I lay the stakes here? You guys don't have to say what I'll tell you what you'll be betting.
Okay.
You'll be betting ownership of each other's respective children, of which none of them are actually your children. But that's besides the point. You get to
have to trade nieces and nephews.
Yes, correct. You got to trade your baby nieces and nephews. The winner gets to have the other one's baby. And then you have to explain to your sibling why they don't have a baby anymore.
Yeah.
I lost a baby to a bet. Sorry.
Sorry, DraftKings is a bitch.
The alternative was to call the annoying guy Lord again. You will understand.
Yeah. There's always a Lord bet. There's always a Twitter account bet.
Yeah.
Just saying. I don't know.
Someone
offers on the table. You think Valiant doesn't? You think Charge doesn't get a more than a map versus a Valiant? That's bonkers to me.
Like Valiant already is like very close to beating top teams.
Valiant kind of.
That's true. That's true. You are underestimating the Valiant a lot here.
I might be, but I don't know. I don't think they're particularly great.
What it does mean is that the APAC average level is now most definitely higher than the average level in NA.
Yeah.
It was. I already thought it was before, but now it definitely is. Like without a fucking doubt.
And anybody who's coming for AVRL, it's just different. It's just a different.
There's so much to try to stun there.
There's 0 free games now.
Correct.
There's not a single game you're like, oh, that's free. None. Yep. You have to fucking work for every game now.
Yeah.
So, bruh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Apex's about to get real interesting. However you want to see the Charge, that region has improved a lot just from these 3 pieces of talent coming into the roster. Like that region leveled up.
I don't know where I'd put them here. I just think it's going to be very even. I'm not going to. Here's the thing that people don't get about APAC. You've been so fucking. I don't want to describe this. You've been so. How do I be derogatory but not so derogatory that it's too offensive? I want to be a little bit offensive but not too offensive. You've been so
spoon-fed.
You've been nut tapped enough. There you go. You've been nut tapped enough in North America watching North American teams where like games are just you can just call the game before it starts. Like, oh yeah, Vancouver versus blah blah blah. Yeah, cool. That team's won. Vancouver loses. Paris, but whatever. New York. New York loses. Whatever. You've been fucking tapped in the nutsack so many times by those games. You simply cannot fathom the idea that teams can be close and that you can't just call the games.
Yeah.
what I mean by that is I don't even know if I can comfortably power rank these teams because it's like anybody should be able to beat anybody on a given day. Maybe, okay, Seoul and Shanghai could still be on a different level, but the other 5 teams, they can all fucking beat each other like pretty evenly. Like Charge with this roster should be able to walk into any game. And I want to even include Seoul and Shanghai into that conversation realistically.
Sure.
I would like to include them in that conversation and say, there's a fair fucking chance Charge can win that. You could never fucking say that between a top team in NA and a bottom team in NA.
No,
Simply doesn't exist.
You don't look at the Paris Eternal and the Gladiators and go, yeah, on a meta, like, no.
And this is why you get a situation where it's like, people are like, oh, it's such a clown feast on APAC because it's so unpredictable. It's like, we have close teams here that can all play to each other and they're all fucking competitive. And you can't understand, you can't fathom the idea that teams can be competitive because you've been so fucking nutsack tapped by bullshit teams being so fucking awful that they're going to lose every game. And other teams being so much better that they're going to win every game. In what world is that more interesting? In what world? It's not. Boring.
It's not. Nope. Charge getting better. I like it. It's good shit. Can't wait to see what they look like. Honestly, like it is a tangible narrative coming into, the Countdown Cup. Like, what does Charge 2.0 bring to the table? Like, are they coming in swinging? What does this patch look like? Like, this is a time to get excited. Because we got a tournament coming up. We got a new patch. This could be exciting. We'll see. I don't know.
I'm just saying, they're about to be eating good.
Feasting.
About to be eating good. I'm not saying all 7 teams are better than all 13 teams.
Sure, yeah.
No, that's not true. I'm not even saying that, like, Charge just come in and they're the 5th best team in NA. I'm not even saying anything like that. That's some like really hyperbolic, hardcore APAC fan speak because I have seen those takes before. I'm personally not saying that. I'm respectful enough to not go that far because I also don't believe it's true. But what I will say is like, every game in APAC about to be good because you don't know who's going to win, and that's exciting as shit.
Yes, it is. Now, you did put up a bug up my ass. I will go. I'll be that person. I will go out here and I will start to list the teams that I think the Charge are better than in NA. Ready? Titans, easy one.
Yeah.
Paris, easy one. New York, easy one.
Yeah.
Boston, getting a little harder. Better than Boston. Justice, better than Justice. Defiant, better than Defiant. I think when it gets real close is when you get to Florida at 7. And I think that says a lot about how good this team is. Just from, they've made just 3 moves, 2 moves. I don't even give a shit about Jimmy. You could literally cut Jimmy. A lot of this is just from Xerneas and Aprita. That says a lot about how good these 2 players are. And I put them top 10 at the least in NA. Says a lot about some of those bottom tier teams.
So the quote unquote worst team in APAC is at minimum top half NA, mid-tier top half.
Now, that, with the old roster, that's a different discussion. Now, they're top 10 easily.
I'm talking about the real roster. The current roster is still fucking, technically speaking, at the bottom because of points. Okay,
sure,
physically speaking, at the bottom.
If you want to look at it that way, that's fair. Yeah.
No, of course I'm not talking about the old.
I'm for all the YouTube frogs that, Rio and Unique are top 10. No. Just to be very clear, for all the goofballs, all the Timmies, Aprita and Xerneas make Charge a top 10 NA team, and it's not close.
Bro, dude. Battle.net forums makes YouTube chat, YouTube comments, Twitch chat, fucking
Harvard.
Cringe lord on it's like homeless people versus like the utmost high tier society I've ever seen in my life. That's how bad Battle.net is compared to everyone else. They're I don't know, like cavemen versus you fucking aliens with fucking space. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. You understand my point. The level of civilization is not comparable.
Mm-hmm.
We have a type 0 civilization versus a fucking type 3 civilization. Is what we're talking about. That's the difference between Battle.net and YouTube chat.
Yeah.
We have good discussions. We have good conversations, and that extends to the YouTube chat and our Discord. So come join us. It's a good time.
All right. How much do we care about covering last week's games?
But there's some bangers. Let me refresh my mind.
They've got a couple. I think the Titans Justice game delivered in spades. I think that's probably the most entertained I've been all season, if I'm to be completely honest. Sitting in Discord, just flipping out about how the Titans came inches close from pulling off the upset of the season. What it feels like.
Yeah,
that one was pretty hot until it wasn't.
Does it feel like an upset? Because to me, it's like it's uncomparable. I don't know. Is it an upset?
I would say so.
Maybe. All right.
I would say it's a pretty sizable one.
I would say factually, you'd be technically correct because of the score lines of the two teams. You would technically be correct in it being a upset. But I don't know.
I think you can't ignore Vancouver now.
I still haven't watched the game yet, but I feel like I got all the details. It's like when there's a really popular movie that I don't watch.
Yeah.
But I know what happens because everyone fucking talks about it, and so I just know what happens.
Yes. Yeah. It is the most Michael Bay game in up until the final moments. Like it is
yeah.
Like
it's the Michael. I love that comparison.
It was Moonfall. Like fuck Michael Bay and fuck that game. Like it is actually
it was a great game. What are you talking about?
It's actually exactly the same as Moonfall because
Roland Emmerich.
Fuck Roland Emmerich. Oh my god, fuck this guy. So
how did you say his name?
Emmerich.
No, it's Emmerich. It says Emmerich.
Right. Yeah, Eldritch. Bro, that movie was so atrocious. Like it started.
Were you entertained?
No.
I was.
It started out sort of like, oh shit, the moon is falling onto the planet. What the fuck can we do?
Yeah.
And this is sort of like how the Justice Titans game went. Like, oh my god, like we're seeing the collision of two spatial bodies, and like who's going to explode? And then it turns out one of them is just hollow as fuck, stupid as fuck. Like,
it's like when Theia collided with Earth hundreds of millions or billion years ago and created the moon. Fun fact from that collision like entirely destroyed Theia, which is, by the way, that was the size of Mars when it collided with the Earth. But like the Earth, just a fucking Tuesday. Just shrugged it off. That's the most Giga Chad shit I've ever heard of. Like a whole planet collides into you, and the Earth is like, just an inconvenience. Like, holy shit. Anyway,
it's
theorized. Anyway,
you know,
I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
Can't confirm.
You know, like it's actually a beautiful metaphor. Like, you know, like when for instance, Shock against Glads, right? That's a game that like has everything you want. It's like really enticing, whatnot. That's Melancholia. It's just practically the same premise, right? Like it's the Earth, it's the moon, it's just coming. And you don't need any fancy twists and turns. You can tell a story there. Kirsten Dunst is naked. So is Rainer. Anta. Like, all of that works out. And then you take the same game, the same theme, and you make it into a Dyson sphere fucking story in which, like,
speaking of which,
was there an animation on the bot? I don't know. Let's just do that. By the way, all of that, like, it's not just the C9 that's egregious. Everything that happens, like, it's like a brain switch that just goes off for an entire minute. Nobody, like, not a single neuron was firing in that entire game for a complete minute. It was like every doctor would have told everyone is brain dead in that entire minute. You shut off the machines. It's over. Like,
it was the most beautiful minute of Overwatch for every wrong reason possible. It was perfect.
You know the worst part? All the plebs will now use that as an example against people. Like, oh, see, you can come back and push. Yeah, if the teams are fucking shit, then I guess you can. But any team that turns on their fucking monitor and has brains, that's not normal. You can't come to me with like abnormalities and pretend that's the fucking normal. Like, I'm gonna be someone be like, yep, every human has one head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and you're gonna find some person. What is the thing when they're attached to another person? You're going to find that person. You're going to find a conjoined twin. You're like, yeah, but this person doesn't have 2 arms. And you're just like, bro, that's Guys, you cannot be fucking coming at me with a single anomaly and then pretending it's normal.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Kirsten Dunst, I did have a crush on her as a child because I watched Jumanji. Okay, move on to the next game.
Wait,
Nice.
how do you
Move on
get
to
a
the next
crush
game.
from Jumanji and not Spider-Man? That's the most average shit I've ever had, man.
Because I was younger and she was too old for me in Spider-Man. And that sounds really bad in the context of
Yes, it does.
2022.
Yes, it
I was a
does.
child. I was a child as well.
You were a
Shut the fuck
child.
up. I was also a
Attracted to
child.
children. Yes.
Okay? I was attracted. How old is she? I was attracted to someone.
don't
I think
remember.
she's slightly older than me.
She
Kristen
is a little bit younger than
is-
me. I'm so sad. No, that's not true. She was
40.
No.
okay.
She is 9 years older than me. So fuck you. I was attracted to someone 9 years older than me, not younger. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Outside of that,
Jumanji.
outside of the Justice
we have to talk about
Titans.
Philly. We have to talk about Philly.
Okay.
When have
okay.
you been
I have not
attracted
caught
to
up,
Anta,
so
Huh?
Since when
Every
have
time
you
he
been
opens his mouth
attracted
for
to
the most
Anta?
part.
Why are you comparing? Why is this the same person as Kirsten Dunst?
I mean, have you seen them in the same room?
Just for clarity, I don't currently have a crush on Kirsten Dunst. That ended probably
Yes.
about 20 years ago.
As
It
soon as
started
you
and
saw
ended
Anta.
about 20 years ago. Anta fucking wasn't born 20 years ago. Okay.
I mean, you've been
I don't know
styling
how it
every
is.
single team that he has coached, so I'm just
I don't
assuming.
know. Anyway, the person I currently have a crush on is MN3. Let's talk about Philadelphia Fusion. Okay.
Mm.
So I casted this game. Holy fuck! If you haven't watched this game,
Which
do
one?
yourself
Just to
a
be
favor
clear,
and watch it.
Soul Philly. Because I have not caught up.
To be really mean, and to be unnecessarily obtuse and unhelpful, I'm just gonna say all Philly games because you should be a Philly fan. Let's go Philly! No, Philly versus Soul. Philly versus Soul, which is significant. Even though this game had zero stakes, because Soul was not going to move out of number 1, Philly was not going to move out of number 4. Even though this game had zero stakes, it was still such an awesome game because it meant so much to Philly in particular because they had been on a really shaky kind of up and down roller coaster. What else? And they hadn't beaten Seoul for something like 3 or 4 games, a long time. They hadn't beaten Seoul for a while. Seoul had a perfect record against them this season. I think they were 7-0 against Philadelphia in maps this season so far. So not only did Philly not beat Seoul yet this year, they were being dumpstered by Seoul. So this was a significant game. Everyone wrote Philly off. I wrote Philly off. Everyone wrote Philly off. It was like, there's no way. Seoul's the best team. Philly's just not going to win. They're just not going to win this. But yeah, if you don't want to watch the whole game, then at least watch the highlights. And I don't mean the official Overwatch League highlights. You can watch it if you want. But Philadelphia Fusion on their YouTube, just Google it. They created and then uploaded their own highlights package of just MN3's POV. And that's about a 6-minute video. So if you just want a short, bite-sized video that you can
hard,
watch
right?
during one,
you press record
session,
and then you press stop and you get the frag movie. Like that map was just perfect.
Yeah, you can watch it. You can watch it in a single poo session. So that's good for you. You're in the break during the toilet. Hey, it's on company time. You're being paid to take a shit. It's all good. I don't feel guilty about it. And yeah, I mean it's a good watch for 6 minutes. Not gonna lie to you, it was just some of the shots are unbelievable. Some of the shots are inhuman. That shot on Prophet at the start of New Queen Street,
dude,
that shit was fucking Terminator.
Yeah,
T800, fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator 2 levels of insane.
Yeah,
just unreal.
Yeah, no, that kid is like when he's on, he's on. That was some Arn's shit right there, right? Like,
just controlled the whole game. He made Fitz swap off Ash.
Jeez.
He made Fitz fucking swap off.
Yep. No,
completely boomed the fella. Like, oh my god! Like, he Fitz on the other side. Like, guys, I can't deal with this. Like, I gotta swap. Like, Jesus.
Having an existential crisis.
You know what? What was also crazy? Prophet actually had a good game. Like, Prophet was
that crazy?
trying, dude.
Huh?
No. I'm saying Profit was on, and MN3
And they still won.
still fragged more.
Right, I gotcha. Okay.
Right, like,
well, dude, the amount of times MN3 specifically fragged Profit is pretty high as well.
yeah.
That's
And they tried to shut him down. They threw everything in the kitchen sink at him, but like it was still not enough most of the time. Man, the ceiling of this team is so high. I don't know.
Dude, I watched Profit only hunt down MN3. Every pulse bomb specifically only targeting MN3, and they still could only barely shut him down.
Yeah.
Barely.
Jeez.
Maybe not even at all. It was like the other 4 members were invisible, and Seoul were like, this is a 5 versus 1 game now, and we are going to put every single resource into only killing one guy. That's what it was like. That's how hard MN3 was carrying. The Seoul felt the need to be like, we just have to kill MN3, otherwise we're fucked. Like, it was that crazy.
I will also say I still find that my tweet didn't do anywhere near enough numbers that it should have done, because I thought it was fire. So you know how
bring up the tweet.
How a lot of the like Chengdu fans were like upset that Chengdu is now not going to the mid-season because they're such much more impressive team, and like if the competitive format was any better, blah 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 blah. They said this last week when Philly was legitimately just 1 map behind, right? And the last maps hadn't even been played. Of course, now it's very clearly the case that, like, if Philly would have, even in this stage, if only those games would have counted, Philly would have still been ahead of the Charge, right? So, I tweeted, according to the Guinness Book of Records, the anechoic chamber at Orfield Laboratories in Minneapolis is the quietest place in the world, with a background noise reading minus 9.4 decibels. It achieves this level of silence by being filled with those Overwatch fans who claimed that the Chengdu Hunters deserve to go to the Midseason Madness ahead of the Philadelphia Fusion. You're fucking dumb. This team, you want this team there every single time. You wouldn't have to the need to watch the Seoul game. They demonstrated their peaks several times this season. You want a team that isn't just like vanilla ice cream. You want the one that pops off when it matters. And if they don't, whatever, they're out in 2 games. But like if they hit their meta on that weekend, like they're going to like show you at least like a top 4 finish. Why would you not want to have that team? Like, nah, that tilted me off the planet. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I see it from the Chengdu POV. I do see it from Chengdu POV because at the time that they were complaining, at that exact moment in time, it did feel a little bit justified, since their team did legitimately look really good, had very competitive games versus both Seoul and Shanghai. I was also a little pissed that the 2 teams that would be going outside of Seoul and Shanghai were a little bit average. And I was going to be upset at the fact that, okay, if they perform badly internationally, it would just look bad on the whole region, especially when we have Chengdu that could actually go and maybe look good. But, I've kind of turned that all around now. I've 180 on that very quickly, because I'm like, you know what? No, I think Philly deserve to go 100% because they just... Philly,
I mean, after this,
after what they did, I was just like, holy fuck! They're not only are they going to go, but they're going to go and look pretty good. I hope. I think. I feel
they've got a look that is scary. Coming into this week, again, I have not seen the game, but everything you're telling me is pretty fucking standout. Like, this sounds like vintage MN3, and this kid just started his career, right? Like, this is as fucking carry performance as it gets, right? Coming into the week, this seemed to be like a write-off game. Seoul easily beats Philly, like you guys are saying. And I don't need to see the game to hear what you're saying and really consider Philly for the Midseason Madness. I can't say the same about Chengdu, who gets 3-0'd, and who else they played? They played Spark, and then they take a map off of Shanghai, right? Like, just on wins alone in like these kind of semi-meaningless games, depending on like at which point of the week you start, like form-wise, this says a lot about Philly. This says magnitudes more about Philadelphia and what they can show versus what Chengdu has shown this stage, right? Like, this is the team you want. This is the team that is peaking currently. This is correct. Philadelphia, Truth Machine, this is the team you want. To Yiska's point, like, this is a team that can do some fireworks.
Yep.
So hope they live up to it. I'm a little scared, but still
Sure.
Because they hurt people. This team hurts people, but I really hope they live up to it. And if they do,
they can.
That'll be exciting. That'll be so exciting.
We got some games to get into. This is going to be an interesting little bracket to fill out, but we will see what that looks like.
All right. Well, with that, let's go and get ready to fill out some brackets. Thank you so much for tuning into 247. Spent a lot more time talking about other things because there was news. And
you've seen the games, guys. Come on, let's just get ready for the tournament.
Let's just get into it. 247 signing out. Peace out. Thank you.